We had psychics coming. You got to check this body of water. I'm telling you, this is where she's at. I've seen it in a vision. She spoke to me from the grave. I got my first homicide August 15th of 2017. It was the most interesting case I've ever worked. A guy, he had 3 young sons, and he was in a custody battle with his ex-wife. The guy's like a carpenter, lays carpet, and then does some other stuff. So he gets called by this weird person. It's all through text. Hey, meet me at this address, kind of out here in the middle of nowhere. He goes out there, and there's like, it looks like an abandoned house. And when he's there, he can tell like something's up. So the backstory is the victim who gets called out to give the estimate. His name is Bobby Caldwell.
Okay.
The new boyfriend of his ex-wife. His name is Sterling Roberts.
Right.
Okay.
So Sterling and Bobby used to have issues.
They used to have issues going back to like early childhood.
Okay.
So now Sterling is with Bobby's ex-wife.
Right.
And he's kind of playing stepdad to their 3 children. So Bobby gets out there, sees that this seems to be like a, abandoned house. He feels like this is some sort of setup or something like that. And he gets in his truck to leave. And as he's leaving, a car comes speeding up to him and just opens, or actually doesn't open fire on him, but pulls a gun out and is, you got 2 moving cars, and Bobby Caldwell knows, like, he recognizes the person.
He knows what this is, what's about to happen. I've been lured into an ambush.
Exactly. He got lured into this ambush by Sterling, who he's very familiar with. He lays eyes on him. So he calls 911. He gets on the phone with Greene County Dispatch, and he's telling him, he's like, I got this guy following me. It's my wife's ex-boyfriend, or excuse me, my wife's current boyfriend, I should say. And he's got a gun. I'm trying to get away, and you can actually hear the car speeding and stuff, and there's altercations going on. That day he gets away. This is about, I would say, the last week of July that this happens. So he gets away, files the police report with the Greene County Sheriff's Office, and said, this guy lured me out to this abandoned house,
right,
under false pretenses that I was going to estimate a job for him, and he tried to kill me. So they take the report. I don't want to say anything negative about their agency or anything like that, but the ball was dropped.
Yeah.
So this Sterling
this
was
seems pretty serious. That seems serious.
Very serious. Yeah. So Sterling has he's on probation, and I believe he had warrants out for other things. He had gone into a church with a gun and tried to commit, and he was already a convicted felon. So when the police got there and took him in, this is prior to all this stuff happening. When the police get there to try to, and they take him into custody, they find out, okay, he's got a loaded gun and he's a felon in possession of a firearm. So he catches a new felony and he's on probation. So obviously
he should be in jail already.
He should
that's no bond, no.
Correct.
And they know that, and they find out this new situation.
Correct.
That's like, just go pick them up.
Yeah. So I don't want to, like I said, I don't want to Monday morning quarterback their agency or what they did, but for whatever reason, a report gets taken and Bobby Caldwell files for a, protection order is what they call it there, restraining order, what have you. So that's granted. And there's some back and forth. Sterling is calling him and, talking crap to him basically and taunting him. And he's admitting, calling him a pussy for, not getting out and fighting him or whatever. And
fight him, you had a gun.
And he's
that wasn't a fist fight.
Yeah, he's like, you had a gun, basically. Yeah. So this is all building to August 15th. So August 15th rolls around, and Bobby takes his 3 sons to a counselor's office to do some family counseling, because basically what had happened was the mom had kind of brainwashed these kids. Her name is Tawny Caldwell. She pretty much brainwashes the kids to think, Dad, Bobby, is the bad guy here, which he's not at all. So they're going through counseling and trying to work out their family differences because of all this, because, again, they're in as nasty of a custody battle as I've ever seen. So late afternoon hours, around 4-ish, I would say. Not exact on the time. About 4 o'clock, him and his sons walk out of the counselor's office, and as soon as they walk out, somebody walks up to him and just starts shooting him in point blank range.
With his kids right there.
With his kids right there, and it's a guy with a hat and glasses on, and just opens fire. It hits him, I believe, 9 to 12 times, and unfortunately, he didn't survive. He was, dead on the spot essentially. So the kids, take off running. So I'm the on-call detective at the time, and I'm at home running on my treadmill, and I get the phone call that there's an active shooter, because that's how it actually got called into dispatch. So the kids run into this nearby Bob Evans, this is all right off the highway where this happens at. So people are panicking, people in Bob Evans. It's just, it's chaos. So the police department, Riverside, quickly finds out, okay, we don't actually have an active shooter. We have just a single incident of somebody getting shot and killed, and the suspect has obviously fled the scene. So my supervisor at the time calls me and says, hey, we've got this. You need to get into work as soon as possible. So I jump off, grab a quick shower, throw my clothes on, and out the door I go. So I get there, and, I'm assessing the scene, everything. You got this guy, this guy's dead there, and, I'm hearing that these kids are still there, and they're all shook up. They just watched their dad get gunned down right in front of them. So I'm kind of walking along the edge of the crime scene where the caution tape is and stuff. And there's this, very hysterical woman there. It's Bobby Caldwell's new wife. Her name's Candace. So Candace is, obviously she's emotional. She can't cross over or whatever. I'm trying to console her. Dayton officers who were assisting us tried to console her as well. But she immediately tells me, I know who did this.
Right.
Sterling Roberts did this. Well, at the time, I had no idea what she's talking about, because I'm just getting there and finding all this out. So she tells me about the incident in Greene County a couple weeks before, and how, he tried to kill him out there and pulled a gun on him, and there was this crazy, vehicle chase with each other. So right away, we do a BOLO through dispatch, was be on the lookout for Sterling Roberts. Mm-hmm. Come to find out that he's on probation and things like that. And within a few minutes of being on this crime scene, I know, like, this is obviously our suspect.
Yeah.
So we get the wife detained. We knew that the ex-wife, I should say, Tawny, who is now the current girlfriend of Sterling,
right,
our suspected shooter, bring her in, and I go to take her cell phone from her, and she backs away and almost starts, I don't want to say fighting me, but wrestling me, because she does not want me to take this phone. So I'm able to get the phone from her, which had a lot of valuable evidence on the phone or whatever, and I bring her in and do an interview of her. And I can tell I interviewed her for probably hour to hour and a half. And it's like, okay, yeah, I'm still a young detective, but I'm smart enough to realize
she's hiding something.
She obviously has something to do with this. She's just as much wrapped up in this as the actual shooter. So didn't have anything to really hold her concrete on that night, but had to let her go. But we took her phone as evidence and stuff. And then in the days following is when we start building this case on Sterling.
Are you able to interview the kids? I mean, they obviously know Sterling. Glasses and mask aside, someone's gait. You know what I'm saying? Their body type, like they should have been able to recognize, like, hey, that was definitely.
It's my opinion that they knew that it was Sterling, but they were not going to come out and say that. I think they were so well coached by their mom.
Talk to the popo.
Right. I don't think that they were going
little 12-year-old gangster.
Yeah. But these kids, and I feel bad for them, because they're young, they're impressionable, they're going by what their mom's telling them. Mm-hmm. So they never gave us a whole lot of information. We tried very hard with them, but we didn't get much. we get some surveillance footage from a drug clinic next door, very close to where this counselor's office was. And, you know, you can look at the picture, the surveillance picture, and know, like, okay, I'm looking at the mugshot of Sterling's previous arrest. I'm looking at this, like, this is the same guy. So, you know, becomes locally, like, actually, I think it got broadcast to even outside agencies, maybe in other states, that this guy is a person of interest in a homicide case. So, fast forward to, that was on a Wednesday. 3 days later, Saturday, I get a call early in the morning. Sterling Roberts had fled Ohio immediately after the shooting. He just jumped on a highway and then went southbound. And he actually comes down here to Florida, goes to Jackson.
They always come here.
That's what I hear. I like Florida, but people
no, we
always
get all the knuckleheads.
Yeah. So we don't have information that he's in Florida yet, but he goes to Jacksonville. I don't know what's in Jacksonville. Guy's really, really bad on meth. He's like smoking crystal meth and just wired out of his mind. So something happens in Jacksonville, and we still don't know the full story. He ends up going back northbound. I guess he's coming home or coming back to Dayton. I don't know why he would do that, but he did. So while en route to Dayton, he passes through Spartanburg, South Carolina. Are you familiar? Close to Myrtle Beach area, about an hour away. Anyways, so there's a Spartanburg County deputy sitting in a gas station. I don't know if it's Speedway or what, just sitting in a random gas station. So Sterling goes in this gas station, and this deputy is just sitting there minding his own business, probably filling out a police report or not even paying attention to him. Well, Sterling has a loaded AK-47 in his back seat. And
is that what he shot? I forgot his name.
Bobby.
Bobby with?
No, he actually shot Bobby with just a semi-automatic handgun.
Who has the judge around? You're wanted. You have an AK. So he's planning on. I'm not going to jail.
Yes,
I'm going out in a blaze of glory.
Correct. So likely in his crystal meth-induced psychosis, he's thinking, you know, this cop's here to arrest me or whatever for obviously what I did in Ohio, even though it wasn't the case. Guy had no idea who he was. Sterling reaches in the back seat of his Mitsubishi Eclipse and takes out this AK, and just from not that far of a distance, I mean, probably less than 30 feet, and just starts, you know, popping off rounds at this guy, you know, rifle rounds at this deputy. And by the grace of God, the guy's never hit or anything like that. I mean, his cruiser's just riddled with bullets, but he's never hit. So they take Sterling into custody for shooting at the deputy. Now he's in custody for a whole unrelated matter that has nothing to do with our investigation. So I get the call Saturday morning that, hey, this guy's in custody. He's down in Spartanburg. You know, you need to get down there and start interviewing him and things like that. So essentially that morning I reach out to the prosecutor's office in Montgomery County, which is the county that Riverside's in. Says, hey, there's like a cellular phone data guru guy. His name's Kevin Horan. He works for the FBI. Here's his phone number. Call him and see what he can do to help you in this case. And it's one of the best phone calls I've ever made before, because this guy's a genius. He's like one of only like 7 experts in the FBI that's certified to do, he's what they call a CAST agent. And don't ask me what the acronym for CAST is, because I already forgot what it is. But basically he analyzes cellular data, you know, cell tower data and things like that, and can do triangulation and put people at certain points and stuff. He was actually a very, the Boston bombing, the marathon bombing back in 2013, he was very much wrapped up in that whole, you know, federal investigation. And I think he did a lot of good work that led to the, you know, figuring out who was responsible for that bombing. But anyways, Kevin Horan gets working with me. I do all these search warrants for phones and things like that, and he's already starting to do whatever crazy tech stuff that's over my head. He's already doing all that stuff. to assist with Riverside's investigation. In the meantime, I go down to Spartanburg, South Carolina, and interview this crazy methed out guy. And basically, during the interview, he, talks a lot of shit to me. And, I'm a very young detective, and this guy's been arrested, convicted felon X amount of times over. And I'm nervous, it's my first murder case ever. So,
Did you tell him that? Ask him to go easy on you, and just admit to it. I'm nervous. I'm new.
No, I try to play it off like I was confident and everything, but he could see that I was new to this, and it took a weird turn in the interrogation where he's almost interrogating me,
Right.
and he stops at one point and he's like, dude, you're new to this, aren't you? I can tell you're new to this. And he's like, I'm better at this than you are. And I'm like, well, I've been a detective for, I'm lying to him. I'm like, been a detective for a long time. He's like, no, you haven't. He's like, I guarantee you just got this job. He was like, I could do your job so much better than you because I've been the one in the seat getting interrogated. Like, you suck at this.
Well, you're about to go to prison, so you're not going to be doing my job.
Yeah. So anyways, I guess I was decent enough at my job at the time because I throw these pictures down that shows the guy in the hat and the glasses and this back and forth, verbal going, him and I for a couple hours. I finally get him to admit like, okay, well, I guess that is me. So he put himself at the crime scene.
Right.
So I'm thinking like, oh, this is great. Now we've just got one other person we know that his, Bobby's ex-wife, Sterling's, current girlfriend. We know that she's involved. So it's like, all right, we've got one down, one to go. So essentially, they hold him on a federal detainer down there for the weapons violation and then shooting at the cop down in Spartanburg. So we've got plenty of time to build our case on him. The interesting part about this story is the FBI agent Kevin Horan and another FBI agent Andrea Kinzig is her name, out of the Dayton office. They start really coming in, and they've got more resources than a small municipal cop like I do.
Right.
So they start working their FBI magic and uncovers this massive family conspiracy. Tawny's mother was involved in this whole thing. Her stepfather was involved. Sterling, the shooters, both of his brothers were involved in this. Tawny's aunt ended up becoming involved with not the homicide, but interesting side note, her middle child, while this whole investigation's going on, disappears. He's, I don't know, 12 years old, something like that. He vanishes, like he's gone. We're not thinking he vanished like he was thrown in a van and, kidnapped and,
Were you thinking something nefarious, like he was killed or died or
no, we assumed that the family was harboring this kid, Tawny, meaning Tawny's family, the mother of the kid. So essentially what was going on.
Why? Because he was involved somehow?
He wasn't involved in the homicide of his dad, but while this investigation's going on, Bobby's family has like temporary custody of him and his older brother and his younger brother, and he wants nothing to do with these people. So we didn't think that he had been kidnapped or anything, but he had disappeared for probably at least a year, if not longer. That being said, come to find out later on in our case, one of Tawny's relatives was keeping him, and he was, I think at one point he was like living in an attic somewhere. So the police would go check, families' residences for him. And there were times I think the police actually went there looking for this kid, and this young kid's actually living in the attic, like, up there. And
like Anne Frank.
Exactly. Right. But Anne Frank with a bunch of, Mountain Dew and Twizzlers and stuff like that 12-year-old kids eat. So now we have the homicide investigation. We're trying to figure out who did what in the planning and execution in Tawny's family. And then now we've got this missing kid as well.
So I have a question. I mean, these are obviously are the all this whole family are they all like basically criminals and on drugs and because this is with that many people, you would think one of them would have an above average IQ
Yeah.
enough to be able to plan something where you realizing we should probably not all be using our cellular phones with 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 a library of data that can be used. We should maybe not have this guy murdered in front of a security camera and his kids with a ton of witnesses where we obviously know where he's going to be. We could, or at least if we're going to lure him somewhere, maybe we should get there on time.
Right.
And be waiting in the woods so that once he gets out of his vehicle and walks towards the house, we then get him.
Yeah.
Instead, we show up late to the show while he's backing out of his car. I mean, the whole bunch of them are just like the perfect one is the luring him, to the place.
Right.
And that could have been a phone call. That could have been a phone call instead of text. Like the texter, it's now it's obviously if it was a phone call, it's not being recorded. You could go have a friend of a friend of a friend buy a fucking cell phone,
Right.
and make those phone calls. He's not going to recognize your cousin's voice and lure him there and then execute him there. There's no cameras. There's no nothing. But you got to get there on time.
Right. Right.
Like it doesn't like out of a bunch of them. I mean, are they all just fucking morons?
So believe it or not, a lot of these people are actually intelligent. It's just the crime that they committed was not intelligent. So Tawny's her mother and her stepfather actually were pretty well-to-do people,
And they understand what's happening.
They know what's happening, and they were later convicted for their part in this federally. That's obviously years down the road because this case took forever. But that being said, yeah, there was like suspected drugs and things like that. Mainly with Sterling and Tawny. I think they were pretty well known meth users. And then Sterling's idiot brothers, they were Chris and Chance were their names. Chris was the older of the two brothers and Chance was the younger. So Chance was the one that kind of the more naive one. I mean, they were adults, but I think he was just helping out Big Brother on everything that was going on. But
he's not robbing the bank; he's just driving the getaway car.
Right.
So I'm not really involved, officer. Oh, is that how that works?
Yeah. So basically, what had happened is they go the day before on the 14th of August, the day before the incident happens that leads to Bobby's death. They go Chance and Jim Harmon. Jim Harmon is Tawny's stepfather. So they go over to Chris and Chance's house to get the gun that ultimately would kill Bobby. And these idiots are and this is according to Jim Harmon, the stepfather of Tawny, who confessed to a lot of this stuff. Basically, he said these guys were such idiots, they didn't even really know anything about guns. And he was afraid that, when he would later go and kill Bobby the next day, he was afraid that the guns were going to jam. The gun that he used would jam. So he actually sat down and cleaned the guns and everything to make sure that the gun was operational to carry out this whole execution.
That doesn't look good.
No, not at all. Jim played another huge role in this too. As soon as Sterling, and we found this out later, but essentially Sterling, as soon as he kills Bobby in Riverside, he shoots straight down to Kentucky where Jim lives in Boone County, Kentucky, and burns his clothes there, and that's where he gets the AK-47. So apparently he's taken this. He gets it from Jim. We never did find the murder weapon. We don't know. We never actually got to the bottom of where this gun was or anything, but that's actually where the AK came from, and Jim Harmon did all this planning and stuff, the execution, and then the aftermath. So, him essentially giving Sterling or Sterling getting access to this AK from Jim is what led to him shooting at the deputies a couple days later. So, this was just a very, very wild case. So many people. So ultimately, all federally, you had Sterling convicted of the homicide, and some other traveling state lines, and the commission of a crime
Right.
crossing state lines. So he gets essentially a life sentence. Tawny gets I think a 25 to 35 year sentence. Uh, Tawny's mom was convicted. Jim Harmon was convicted. Chris Roberts, which was Sterling's brother, he's convicted. Chance is convicted. So you've got all these people, and then you've got the investigation with the missing kid and the family's involvement in that later on. So this actually didn't get resolved until like around 2020, as far as everybody getting convicted. And
Are they all mostly taking pleas, or did they actually do they actually go to trial?
Sterling wanted a trial. The others, I believe, took pleas. I mean, there's so many of them.
Yeah.
And some probably got a little bit better deals than others for their cooperation.
Right.
And Jim, I think he got a much better deal, because Jim Harmon was kind of the puzzle piece that put all this together for us. So it's crazy. So myself and Kevin Haran, the FBI agent who does all the cellular stuff, and then my partner at the time, my detective partner, Kyle Seward, we're doing surveillance on Jim Harmon's house, because we know that he's involved in everything. No, we don't know everything at this time, but we know he's involved. So we're doing surveillance, and we're in. Kevin's driving like one of his FBI, big black Chevy Tahoes, and Kevin's an FBI agent. He's never been a police officer. He's incredible at what he does, but I don't think he's ever made a traffic stop. Not that I know of.
Right.
So we're following behind Jim as he pulls out, and we're doing mobile surveillance on him. And his guy's all over the road, and we're talking to each other, and we're like, this guy's drunk. We're basically wanting to catch up to him wherever he stops. I don't care how far he drove. We were just gonna follow him till he gets out, and then talk to him there. So this guy's swerving everywhere, and my police officer instincts kick in. I'm like, this guy's drunk or something. He's gonna cause an accident. I'm like, we gotta get a traffic stop on this vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at Kevin. I'm like, when was the last time you done a traffic stop? And he's like, never. I'm like, well, it's time. You got lights on your car? He's like, yeah. I'm like, all right, well, it's time to do one. So we pull this guy over. He's just got guns all over him, like pockets, holsters everywhere. He's got guns all over his inside of this big van he's driving. And we essentially pull this guy over because we think he's a danger to other motorists or whatever. And we start talking to him. And as soon as we tell him, like, hey, we stopped you, are you good to drive? I check him out and make sure. I'm like, well, he's not drunk.
Mm-hmm.
He just drives like an idiot, essentially. So Kevin and I start, hey, we know what's going on, and we're starting to put some pieces together in this whole investigation that we're doing, essentially. And we got a lot of questions for you. And he's a real dick at first and doesn't want anything to do with us. And then all of a sudden it takes a weird turn, and he's like, there's a Frisch's right down the road. You guys take me and buy me coffee, and buy me some cigarettes. I'll go tell you what happened. And we're like, this is weird. He goes from like, screw you guys, I'm not speaking to you, to just all of a sudden, all right, I need a pack of cigarettes, and I need some coffee, and whatever I want to eat, I'll sit down and I'll tell you this stuff. So I got put on cigarette duty. I got to go buy this guy cigarettes or whatever, because that's what he's asking for. And, he's not really detained. He's just voluntarily saying, I'll sit down and tell you guys this stuff. So we sit down, and he just pretty much that late afternoon it tells us everything. It puts this whole, murder investigation all together and stuff. And ultimately his cooperation and his statements that day led to the conviction of the umpteen people that were involved in this. So a great investigation. It was really eye-opening for me as somebody who just starts in this new unit, and now all of a sudden I'm working hand in hand with this badass FBI agent and his partner and stuff. I get to do a lot of cool stuff. but that is without a doubt the most interesting case I've ever worked. October 3rd of 2018, I got another case that drew a lot of attention in our area. So, and what's crazy about it is the way our detective unit was set up. There's 4 of us, and you're on call every 4 weeks. So I wasn't even the on-call detective. And I get a phone call from my wife in the early evening hours of October 3rd of 18. And she's like, "What's going on with this missing woman out of Riverside?" And I'm like, "What are you?"
She's in the know.
Yeah, I'm like, "What are you talking?" Like, what? I had no idea what she was
You
talking
need to get
about.
on this.
I had no clue. And a friend of hers was a friend with the missing woman. So this friend of the missing woman calls my wife, Kim, and says, "Hey, what, is there any leads as to where Cheryl might be right now?" And Kim, of course, is like, "I have no idea what you're talking about." So she calls me, and I have no idea. So I'm like, "This sounds really weird. Is there like, drugs or anything involved?" Because, I mean, you got people who are on dope and stuff like that. They tend to wander off and, vanish for a few days and go on. This was not the case with her at all. So she was a regular middle class housewife with 2 daughters. She was going through a separation at the time, but the most normal, average middle class woman ever. So I'm like, this is really strange. So I'm actually driving around doing something else detective wise at the time. So I drive back to the police department and I look up this woman's name. And lo and behold, there was a missing persons report taken that night that same day at midnight, October 3rd. And the officer, Mike Brewer, good friend of mine, he did a really, really good job on this. The problem is the detectives were advised, one particular was advised that morning by the sergeant of Officer Brewer, said, "Hey, we got a missing person out of here." Well, I'm not going to name that person's, I'm not going to say who it is, but that person, for whatever reason, did not take this as serious as he or she should have done.
Mm-hmm.
And now, to be clear, I don't really think it would have changed a whole lot as far as our investigation goes.
But that's why they hadn't jumped on it that morning.
Correct. And, I don't know what was in that person's mind that day or why this was. If I would have been advised of it right away that morning, I would have been all over this because that's our job.
What was the report? Was it just like, "Oh, haven't seen her since yesterday," or was it like, "Hey, nobody's heard from her in 6 days"?
Yeah, so it wasn't that long. It was like all throughout the day, the day prior, which was October 2nd. Basically, this is a person who, Cheryl Cooker was her name. She was always on the phone, whether it be social media or texting or talking or what have you, and she stayed in constant contact with her daughters, with her sister. Her sister is actually who came and made the report. So around 7:15 that morning of October 2nd, no communication with her whatsoever. Nobody can get a hold of her. This has never happened. Like, this is super out of character for her. And her sister, Margie, calls and says, "Have the police meet me at Cheryl's house, which is over in like the south part of Riverside." So Officer Brewer gets there, and Margie is waiting outside. She doesn't live there, but she's just waiting to talk to the officer or whatever. Meanwhile, Cheryl's husband is inside sleeping, and then Cheryl's daughter's there also. So the officer talks to Margie, and then ultimately talks to the other 2 inside the house. And she just reports that we don't know what's going on with her. She's disappeared. Her SUV's gone. We've been trying to track her, find my iPhone, GPS. They have no idea where she's at. And, she's visibly shaken, the sister at the time. So Officer Brewer pulls, asks to speak with the husband. He comes outside. He's very nonchalant about it, not overly forthcoming with a ton of information other than to say, "Yeah, she just didn't come home, but we're separated." He and his youngest daughter had just gotten back from Florida, the day before.
Are they separated living together?
Separated living together.
Okay.
Yes. So, and they were starting to date other people at the time.
Right.
So Cheryl was dating other people. He was dating somebody in particular. And so there was some red flags going off to Officer Brewer, who's a seasoned veteran. I mean, now he's with the police department for about 20 years. He knew something was wrong, and that's why he told his supervisor, the sergeant at the time, who in turn in the morning came in and advised a couple of the detectives, one in particular. And I was not there for that because I would typically work a little bit later hours, like 10 to 6 as opposed to like 8 to 4. So I wasn't there when this verbally was reported to us. So early evening hours of the 3rd is when I start digging into this person and Cheryl and her situation and trying to figure out did this woman just go somewhere to blow off some steam or what have you, or what's going on here? So several hours later, I would say at about 8:30ish, I get a phone call from Margie, the sister who made the initial report all these hours previously at midnight. And she's like, hey, we found Cheryl's car. It's in a parking lot, literally not even a half mile from their house, in a very small shopping center where there was a bar tavern right there. Her car was parked there, her SUV. So I call the on-call detective because that's protocol. And this person answered the phone and was like, what's going on? So I told this person, and their response was, well, what do you want me to do about it? I'm not coming in for this. What do you want me to do about it? I'm like, okay, I guess it's my case now. So, and I was more than happy to work this case. I'm a young detective, and I'm starting to get good at my job. So,
Right.
Again, don't want to keep Monday morning quarterbacking this person, but the drive, my opinion, really wasn't there. So,
Is he ready to retire or something? I mean, is he just jaded? I mean, easy.
This person is no longer with the police department, is really all I can say. And I don't want to speak ill of he or she, but just I would have
Okay.
done things differently, I guess is the best way I can put it.
Okay.
And to be clear, my department didn't do anything wrong. They, the detective was advised. He or she really didn't do anything, and the upper command staff did not know what was going on at that particular moment. It wasn't until I told them, hey, we got a serious situation here, that they knew of this incident or whatever. So I would say that the detective could have done more,
Right.
obviously.
But once again, at this point, it
Again, I don't
probably
really,
doesn't mean that it necessarily would change anything.
yeah, I don't think it would have changed much of anything, but that is kind of the way it played out. So that being said, I get down to this bar parking lot, and there's, lo and behold, is her vehicle. And the daughter had a spare key, so we were able to get into it. And she's got kind of like a go bag in there with, some of her property. I believe her driver's license and everything was inside there. Her Fitbit wristwatch was inside, and it just seemed like this is now there's no doubt to me whatsoever that something nefarious has gone.
Yeah, if
gone
it's
on
questionable nobody's leaving all their, certainly not their ID
Correct.
behind if voluntarily.
here. Right. So we do have her cell phone, which is another huge red flag, because who's going to go somewhere without her, their cell phone? So the family, the husband gets there. We start asking him some questions, and then he starts giving us a lot of information about their current living situation, how they're separated, and she's out, seeing men, and and I don't really believe that was really the case. I think she had a guy in particular that she was seeing with, but none of the information that we got was that she was this person out, partying it up with this guy.
So he's trying to make it seem like this isn't out of character for her.
Kind of, yeah. And that's when he opens up about, I'm in a new relationship with somebody, and I'm advised on this scene that they're swingers, which I'm not, judging anybody or whatever, but that was something that was made a point to tell me, for our investigation or whatever. So, yeah, basically at this point now we're just trying to figure out where this woman is. And it's all hands on deck at that point. The police department, my department gave me as many resources as I needed, state police and things like that. And then our investigation really takes off from there. So a day later, I'm going out to canvass the neighborhood, and I see her husband getting in his car to go to work. And he walks over to me and he's like, "Hey, how I was actually meaning to call you to give you some information about this, that, or the other." And I noticed that his hand was extremely swollen, which could be from anything,
Right.
But my senses are going off at that point, and I'm starting to wonder, what's going on with this guy's hand, because it's puffed up like a balloon. And
But you hadn't noticed this prior to this?
not prior,
Okay.
no. And it was dark,
You're
so
right.
so when we find the car, it was dark and stuff, and I just never really saw it then. But this is daylight,
Yeah.
afternoon hours of Thursday the 4th. So now I'm starting to realize better lighting and stuff. So that that's kind of going off in my head, and I didn't want to come out and say, I didn't want to start asking about the injury or whatever, because you never want to make people feel like, oh,
Yeah, they're looking at me.
they're looking at, yeah. You want people's cooperation. And
It's like
obviously,
we're in this together.
right, exactly.
We're trying to. This is all we're concerned about.
Yeah. And I just wanted to not make him have the impression that we were zeroing in on him, because it could be anybody, it could have been anybody. So basically it was, let's arrange a time where you and I sit down and have a lengthy conversation about everything or whatever. And he had a crazy work schedule. We worked 2 jobs, so it was very difficult for him to, and I can't force him to come in and talk to me by any means. So I was essentially, working at his schedule. So ended up the only time that he was really available to do it was October 9th. And that same day I had drafted up search warrants for the house that they resided in together, for her vehicle that we found, and then his truck and things like that. So while these search warrants are starting to go on, I'm sitting down for an hour and a half talking to him, but probably closer to 2 hours actually.
Does he know that this is happening? And do you want this to be happening while you've got him busy? Is that the?
He was aware.
Oh, okay.
He was aware. There was really no way to be able to do this without, advising him. And he was cooperative. He wasn't trying to, argue the probable cause of the warrants or anything like that. He was very matter of fact, and, let me sit down with you. Let me give you my timeline. He came in voluntarily without a lawyer or anything like that. And he was, at the time cooperative with us. So, I sat there, and basically it was just, my biggest goal was to, get this person's timeline really locked down,
Mhm.
and then obviously get their backstory. How long have they been together? Their history with their children. They had one child in common, and then Cheryl's oldest daughter was from a previous relationship. So he had a stepdaughter, the oldest one, and then the youngest daughter was his biological daughter. And then he gave me a lot more insight into their relationship, and how she was, his words, not mine, kind of promiscuous and things like that. And so basically I obviously he's not taking any type of, I didn't have anything to do with this. I don't know where she's at. And at that time I can't say, obviously he's a person of interest,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody's a person of interest, technically within the family. So the days following that, a lot of video is starting to come in, and video from the parking lot where she parked. It was next door to a Kroger grocery store. So we were able to pull video from there, and it shows that around 11:09 in the morning that she disappeared, which was Tuesday the 2nd. So We know she took her daughter to Stebbins High School, which is ironically the school I went to. But anyways, she dropped her daughter off around 7 o'clock in the morning along with her daughter's friend. She then goes back home and she's on Facebook, sharing memes and stuff like that. Around 7:15, everything just stops. All cell phone communication stops. People are calling her and texting her, but she's not responding. No more social media stuff, no more Facebook stuff, nothing like that. So we know something between 7:15 in the morning until, let's say, 10 after 11 that same morning happens. So later on, when we get the surveillance video, we see her car come in from Burkhart Road, which I don't have obviously the map in front of me, but it's a road that runs east and west. The car pulls in from the west into this parking lot, parks, and this is just my luck as an investigator. Obviously, the car's parked here, and there's great video footage. Well, the surveillance footage is it times out if there's no motion.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no motion going on, and it stops because there's no motion. So it stops recording. Well, then more motion picks up later on, and by this time, whoever the person was that parked her vehicle, her SUV, is a Toyota Highlander. It's that person's out of the view of the camera. We later got surveillance footage from Kroger, which actually shows a person walking away, and you can tell pretty definitively that it's a male,
Mm-hmm.
and they're dressed in all dark clothing, black hoodie, dark pants, and things like that. But that's really all we got. We can't, figure out exactly who it is, but it's pretty clear it's a male. And that person is walking north across the parking lot back towards Burkhart Road where the car was seen coming in. So that's our big leads at this point. What's kind of interesting about this case is, keep in mind, this is, like a week later at this point. I remembered just sitting there typing a report for who knows what, and I remember hearing something come over the radio that there's this suspicious male walking in the St. Helens neighborhood. That's the neighborhood that Cheryl and her husband lived in. And this is a neighborhood that we had almost no crime.
Mm-hmm.
It just was it's a Catholic neighborhood, a lot of older people and stuff. Like, there almost never vehicle break-ins or disorderlies or even domestics for that matter. This is a quiet, very, very quiet neighborhood. And I remembered hearing over the radio, it kind of dawned on me that there was a suspicious guy walking in the neighborhood, and they actually put the school on lockdown because the caller was so
Adamant.
that this person was out of place and something was going on. So that day on October 2nd, it was crazy. Ohio typically gets, chilly in October. This day it was like in the 80s. And the thing that stood out was this person, the suspicious person walking near the school, was wearing like a hoodie. I believe they had their hood pulled up, and way too hot to be dressed like this, especially, late morning hours when the sun's beating down on you. And I heard that this person was walking towards the school. Well, the interesting thing is you've got a school right here, and then you've got this long fence line right here. And Cheryl and Bill's house were one of these houses that was on the fence line. So I immediately go to the school and I tell them, I'm like, I need all your video from October 2nd from this time to this time. They provide that to me. And you see this person walk to the dead end where you would enter onto the school grounds, which this person did. And then this person walks right on that fence line going towards Cheryl and the husband's house. So, and this person is dressed in all black. They got their hood up. They're clearly trying to conceal their identity. So now it's like, okay, this is really huge. So the interesting part, as I go back to the timeline of the husband, and I re-interview him a second time, and I say, walk me through your timeline again. Now the timeline's starting to change a little bit. It's, now I woke up a little bit earlier than I initially said, and But the interesting part was he said he was at home the whole time. Well, it's clear that to me, it's clear that this person has something to do with this woman's disappearance. And it's also clear to me, and here's another bad part of my terrible luck. The same thing that applied to the tavern's security footage, same thing applies to the school. It's motion censored. There's no motion, then it times out and doesn't pick back up until there's something, trees blowing that activates it or whatever. So one of two things happened. This person is walking right towards Cheryl's house. This person either climbs the fence and, goes into their backyard. The only other option would be walk straight into a wood line. Why would anybody do that?
Right.
So it's one of two things, because there's so many. I believe there was like 12 to 15 cameras along the school. A lot of those never stopped recording because there was no motion cutoff or anything. So basically, the person never turns and goes out towards the main road or to the side of the school. This person either jumped the fence or they walked into the woods. So, and it's clear to me that because of everything going on with my investigation, that this person likely, crossed over the fence onto their property.
Yeah, the likelihood that the same person was right next to her house and was also, what, half a mile, 2 miles away?
Not even a half mile.
At her car?
Right.
So the guy drove the car, parks it, and just walks back.
Correct. So obviously you've got witnesses that see this person enough to call the police and say there's a suspicious person in our neighborhood. This person matches the clothing description, white male, middle-aged or younger, whatever the caller said. But it's clearly the person who parks the car is the same person who's walking in the neighborhood, seen and then captured by the school surveillance footage walking along this fence line.
What about the cellular data? Like, did the husband's phone never leave the residence?
Correct.
Okay, so
yeah, so we don't have.
But was he on the phone during that period of time?
One call was made to a credit card company several minutes prior to Cheryl's vehicle being found in the tavern parking lot.
Being found?
Being captured by the surveillance footage, I should say. Okay, which was later found the next day on the 3rd of October. But yes, there was a phone call made, and then I don't believe there were any phone calls or anything like that until quite later on in that day, and probably like around noonish, because what we got from the timeline is that the husband met up with his new girlfriend at a restaurant in a nearby city that's somewhat close to Riverside, probably within a 15-minute drive.
So if he's home, like he says he was, and he is probably saying he used the phone to call his credit card company.
Correct. Yes.
And is there a recording of the credit card company conversation, or was it just the boop 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 with the numbers?
There was a call log that shows that he was actually on the phone with somebody.
Okay.
So I sent a subpoena to the credit card company to say I need any and all recordings associated with this phone number. Well, there was none. Nothing was captured.
So they don't record the calls.
Correct. They might record the calls, but they didn't record that specific call.
Okay.
So I struck out with that particular.
So that could have been his girlfriend or somebody. Hey, by the way, can you call my credit card company? And
technically, it was coming from his phone, so I can't say it was him that called or anybody else, but somebody used his phone to call the credit card company, and apparently it was over an Uber Eats or a DoorDash dispute or something like that, like a fraudulent charge. Is the information that we received is why the phone call was made.
To use his phone, is it facial recognition or is it a code?
I believe it was a code at the time.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure of that, but I believe it was a code. So, again, we can't prove who made that phone call or whatever.
I'm just trying to figure out, like, if you can, exclude.
Right. And the bad thing about, the movements and tracking, it's all about cellular towers and where is it hitting from and stuff like that.
But he left the phone. Like he's smart enough. He's not the other knuckleheads.
Right.
He's smart enough to leave the phone.
As far as we know, there wasn't any type of movement on his phone until later that day when he goes and has lunch with his new girlfriend, and then later on after that goes and picks up his daughter from school and takes her to physical therapy.
Well, that's too bad. It's too bad that he's not not an avid phone user, and that suddenly there was a 20-minute gap where it's like you use your phone nonstop,
right?
But there's a gap here.
Yep, exactly. So, one of the things that I noticed too in the following interviews with the husband was he had a very big, noticeable gash on the back of his elbow. So, of course, during the interview, now he's sitting down to talk to me. Now I'm like, I need to ask you about your hand.
Mm-hmm.
When I saw your hand, a day after she was reported missing, it was blown up like a balloon. And he tells me that he injured it at work, and but no injury report was ever filed. So we were never able to corroborate what he was saying about that. And then the pretty huge gash on the back, and I don't know, the best way I could describe it looked like a really bad like rug burn is the best way I can describe it. Like it's circular, like the skin had been taken up and scabbed over. And so I asked him about that, and he said that the day that his wife went missing, he was doing some household chores, one of which cutting the grass. And he claims that he was, going around the corner of his brick house and scraped his arm really hard on the brick. And maybe that happened. I don't know. That's what he claims happened. But I thought it was very interesting that you've got two significant, noticeable injuries, neither of which he's denying. He's obviously saying, yeah, my hand was messed up and this is what happened. My, back of my elbow, tricep area is messed up and this is what happened.
He's just very accident prone.
I guess he's an accident prone kind of guy. So, so obviously that's going on. And there's a footage of him inside a Kroger, actually right by where her SUV was found, only, maybe 75 yards away. He actually, the night that she went missing, he goes into Kroger to buy, I think, one thing of ramen noodles and a gallon of milk. And you can actually see in the footage this noticeable gash. So keep in mind, this is
after or before, after the car's dropped off, or before the car?
After.
Okay.
Not like 9-10 hours afterwards.
Okay.
So, that being said, that's suspicious to us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying he's a suspect or anything, but it's, heightens our, investigative awareness a little bit more or whatever. And again, like I said, the timeline starts to change a bit. And one of the other things that I found kind of interesting is, people deal with the situations differently. I know just me personally speaking, God forbid my wife went missing, I would be calling the detective so much that he would be aggravated to hear from me. Right. I mean, I would be calling several times a day wanting an update. I wasn't getting that at all. I got a couple phone calls, one of which was, hey, I've got some missing money. I think she may have taken some money from our safe. And the other phone calls were like, hey, which he was cooperative as far as like the search warrants go. And I know you got my electronic devices and stuff, but when can I get those back?
Right.
My daughter needs those for school purposes and things like that. So again, one call was money related. The other call was, when can I get my stuff back? I don't recall a time where it was, there might've been one phone call that came in, was like, hey, have you made any progress? But it wasn't, but in his defense, they were separated and things like that. But at the same time, they have children together, and you would think that he would be, blowing my phone up. I was hoping that he would be blowing my phone up, but I didn't get that a whole lot. And, there were people going out searching for her and teams of volunteers going out. And to my knowledge, I don't believe that there was ever any type of participation with anything like that. So fast forward to the end of the month, I think it was like October 30th, he comes in and the big mark is kind of still there, but it's healing. And I'm pointing it out again, like, this injury from 20 some days ago is still there, and it just hadn't really healed up. So something very significant He claims that it was from the grass mowing incident or whatever, and that could be the case. But, to me, certain things are just piling up more and more and more. So, needless to say, we have a person of interest. That being said, he's telling us about this boyfriend and this guy that she may have dated and stuff. And we were able to talk to these people. They were all very cooperative, and, one of which came in, one of which was phone interviewed. And, the guy that she was seeing, he was a truck driver. And I believe his like over the road records or whatever show that he was actually out of state the day that she disappeared. So he wasn't even in town. And then another guy that she was allegedly speaking to, he lives in a different state anyways, and there's no evidence that he was ever even in this area. So we as investigators can't really focus a lot on them because we have definitive reason to believe that they had nothing to do with this.
Does the sister or her friends describe the relationship with the estranged husband as being, violent, or have there been threats, or has she said to anybody like, "Listen, I feel uncomfortable"? Because people have intuition. Sometimes obviously sometimes things happen and you just never saw it coming. But sometimes you listen to your intuition, you start to feel like something ain't right. This guy just bought some black bags, some zip ties, and a bottle of chloroform.
Yeah.
I'm not feeling good, ladies.
Right.
Is that something that was happening? That any of these women say like, "Hey, listen, this relationship's getting contentious. I need to get out of this house."
A lot of it was contentious but not violent.
Right.
We weren't getting any types of, Cheryl said that there was any violence, or there was nothing like that. But
is he describing the relationship differently than her friends? Like he's like, "Oh, we got along great."
No.
And they're saying, "No, they did not get along great."
No, he was pretty much telling the same story that the friends were saying, that they were not in a good place with each other. They weren't really talking. Again, he had taken this trip to Florida. He had just got back the day, just hours actually before she disappeared. By all accounts, him and his daughter got back around, I think their flight, I think they got back to Riverside like 9:30, 10 o'clock in the evening on Monday evening, which was October 1st. And then her cell phone kind of goes blank at 7:15 on this Tuesday the 2nd.
Right.
So again, they got back hours before. One interesting thing that we found out in our investigation was it was a secret. It was supposed to be kept a secret to Cheryl. It was an agreement that his girlfriend actually went on the vacation down here to Florida. It was not supposed to be told. By all accounts, it was, "Don't tell your mom that my new girlfriend is going on vacation with us," because that's something that I've been told would have really, really upset her. So we have no way of proving if she found that out or something of that nature. But we do know that it was very clearly made to the youngest daughter, "Don't tell mom."
Right.
So, there's a lot of theories that we have as investigators, as that's kind of interesting. Given the timing, they get back and then she disappears. I'm not saying he did anything. I'm just saying it is interesting, timing as far as the time of her obvious, disappearance.
Was there did they, during the search warrant, did they find anything that there's no blood, there's no blood splatter, there's no, I don't know, I watch a lot of forensic files with the luminol.
Yep.
They did that. And
so we had the state police, Ohio BCI came in and they used the luminol and they did all that good stuff. And there was no indications of any type of blood or cleanup or anything. It was, now keep in mind, this is days later, and I took a lot of criticism for this. Why didn't you do a search warrant the day that she was missing?
She's just missing at this point,
Yeah,
right?
what's
don't you have to wait a while?
Yeah, what's the probable cause? A lot of people don't understand that you have to establish clear-cut probable cause for a judge to. You're going in and you're kind of flipping somebody's house upside down looking for evidence of a crime. We didn't have anything of that at this point. So, I get people's tendency to judge the police and stuff like that. But if you don't have a background in law enforcement or you're not an attorney, it's hard to understand that a judge is just not going to let you go in and invade people's privacy. The Fourth Amendment is the whole basis of law enforcement, essentially. So if that PC is not met, then you're up shit creek, essentially.
So, I mean, assuming she's deceased, which, I mean, she's just like she would have just left without her clothes, without her car, her ID, her phone. There's no reason to think that. So at some point, she never saw this coming. I mean, she had no indication that she was in danger of any kind. So, or you think it may have been like a disagreement that just went bad very, very quickly.
We've got a lot of theories. We've had a lot of theories for all these years.
But there's nothing in his past, like you can see he's prepared. There's no text. There's nothing, like, because you guys have read all of his texts. There's nothing like, well, she won't be a problem much longer. Nothing like that. No.
There was arguing in the text messages, and there was one particular text message that was sent by her to him in late September. I want to say it was maybe around. So she filed for divorce. I think they both filed for divorce at similar times, but I think he was served first. And I believe it was like around September 24th. And there was a text message sent to her that's during an argument that said, wait till she names the name, but wait till our youngest daughter, I'm paraphrasing, wait till our youngest daughter finds out what you did, or something of that nature. So that was a text message that was interesting. And there wasn't any type of, like, on his end, there wasn't any type of, like, engaging in that. Mm-hmm. It was just more or less her sending this kind of, like, threatening message as far as, if she finds out this unknown thing, mm-hmm. then, she's indicating that it's clear that the daughter's going to be upset. Another interesting thing is there was like a group text message. She worked for NHTSA.
What's NHTSA?
NHTSA is like it's like organization, like a government agency that deals with, like, highways and accidents and things, and data for accidents and things like that. So that's who she worked for. So she's in this group text message with a lot of people, and she makes a comment, something to the effect of, well, he got served his divorce paperwork today, so if I'm not at work tomorrow, I'll be in a grave somewhere. Ha 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 ha. And she puts the ha 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 at the end of it. And, obviously that's something that we zeroed in as investigators too. And the people that she worked with were overly concerned about that, and rightfully so.
Right.
So, but then also there was the ha 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 at the end. So it's like, was this a serious comment, or was this a joking comment? You don't want to read too far into it. So, something else that comes into play is her Fitbit. I'm not overly familiar. I never wore one. I'm a fat guy, so, I don't really track my steps a whole lot. But that being said, we were able to get a search warrant on the data from the Fitbit, and it shows that she had a heartbeat with movement at 9:13 a.m. that morning of the day that she disappears. I believe it's from like 9:03 to 9:13. Like, there's movement and tracking of the heartbeat. And then all of a sudden, her heart rate, like, spikes significantly. And I believe at 9:13, that's when the Fitbit has no more registered pulse, heartbeat, whatever you want to call it. So another interesting thing about that is the data showed that around shortly before like 11 o'clock that morning, it showed that there were steps being registered. The Fitbit was recording steps, but with no pulse. Mm-hmm. So I think there was a series of like 12 steps and then like 24 steps. So our theory and this has never been proven, was always that
The body's being moved.
the body's being moved. Yeah, and she's no longer alive. So the steps are registering, the movement, the steps are registering, and it's, in our theory, it's still on her wrist, but there's no heartbeat.
Right.
So, and then we find the Fitbit in the SUV, which is found on October 3rd. So that was another strange oddity. Is a neighbor, and this is frustrating, but a neighbor comes forward several months after her disappearance and says, I've been, essentially, I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting this person, but, I didn't want to come and tell you this earlier because I really didn't want to get involved. I live in the neighborhood. So, the wood line that I mentioned earlier, that if the person, okay, so there's a large hill that goes up. So this person lives at the top of this hill. You got the wood line here, and then you got the fence line, and then, Cheryl and her husband's house is here. So this person claims they went out to smoke a cigarette that day, and I believe they said around 10 a.m., which doesn't really match up great with our timeline, but this person said around 10 a.m. they heard like crazy screaming coming from that house. They can't definitively say that it was coming from that specific house because there's houses around it.
Right.
But that person said they could hear a female yelling, no, 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 what have you. No male's voice or anything, but a female clearly screaming. And that person is confident it was coming from the house, but they can't say 100%. But so that would have been, if it truly was 10 o'clock to his or her memory, it would have been about 45 minutes after the whole Fitbit data. So unfortunately, it didn't necessarily, and presenting this to prosecutors, that's something that they kind of said, well, the times aren't matching up. I get that, but sometimes people can be a little bit off. You can say this happened at 10, but you're reporting it X amount of months later. We thought that was significant, but unfortunately, it really didn't end up helping us a whole lot up to this point.
So what is the timeline that at like 9:15, she's deceased. The car is dumped at 11.
Like 10 after 11.
Oh, 10 after 11. The person is seen walking the fence line at however long it takes, or
so some of the videos were the times were a little bit off. So even though the Kroger video says it was like 11:09 that it was parked, I think it was actually like 7 minutes fast, and it was actually more like 11:04, 11:05-ish.
Okay.
But of course, I'm going by what the video said it was. Which we later found out. But then at like 11:13 is when the school surveillance shows this person walking the fence line.
So there's enough time for that person. It's pretty clear that it's that person.
Yeah.
Nobody's really disputing that this has got to be the same guy.
Yeah.
So at some point, so the body can still be there, and then just moved later.
Correct.
You just throw it's in the trunk of a vehicle, and then he gets in that vehicle and drives off, and just waits for the body to be found, assuming it's the husband, which it's not like it's overwhelming. And that's the problem with I know it's very difficult to find someone guilty of homicide, and the thing is that most homicides are circumstantial. Most cases are tried with circumstantial evidence because you just don't. You know what I'm saying? A lot of times, let's face it, there doesn't have to be blood splatter. If he chokes her to death, she didn't bleed. She's wearing clothes. If she's got, release of her bladder or whatever, she's wearing blue jeans or sweatpants or whatever, like everything's contained. Mm-hmm. She's picked up, she's thrown in the back of a trunk with some, a comforter or whatever, that there's no seepage of any kind of body fluids, and then her body's disposed of later. The problem is finding the body.
Right.
And this, there's just tons of places to drop a body where they're not going to find a body unless Well, I mean, you could just leave it somewhere because people, animals pull it apart and the bones get spread, and eventually somebody, not always, but somebody might find it. Or you bury the body and just hope that they never make that place into a subdivision.
And you got to have a significant amount of privacy and time to bury a body,
Right.
obviously. So,
Well, is this kind of a rural? You kind of said this is like a rural area, though, right? Or close to.
are you talking about Riverside?
Yeah.
Where she, no, not. So, in any given direction, you drive 20 minutes or so, you can be in a rural area. But as far as where Riverside is, not a whole lot of, places where you could dump a body.
See, I feel like I could dump a body all over the place where I live, because the subdivisions, like you've got. I mean, when there's thousands of houses and tons of subdivisions, but the way they build them is, you can look over at my neighbor's house and there's this massive wooded area, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's probably 30 blocks. It's a huge area. It's like I would say a half a mile or a quarter of a mile by quarter of a mile, right? It's a huge area. Like, if you were in that, you would think I'm in the middle of the woods.
Right.
At some point as you're walking, you can't see through the woods line. But if you walk 200 or 300 feet, now you can start to see, oh, there's a clearing and another 300 feet, and you're in a residential neighborhood. Like, to me, I feel like you would want privacy, because I would be afraid like some kids are playing back here and they walk through the woods or something. But how often does that happen? If it's the middle of the day or something, like,
Right.
I can get rid of a body.
Yeah.
And nobody's building those things. Those are they're kind of like I don't want to say conservations, but they're not building there. You have to have so much greenage, right?
Yeah.
And they can't build in those. So nobody's ever building there unless we ever become so massively overpopulated, they scrape the whole neighborhood and start over.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this guy's lived out his life by the time that ever happens.
Right.
But those are everywhere, though. And I live in a neighborhood it's an upper middle class neighborhood that is. Am I wrong? Would you say that? Would you say middle class? Middle class. The houses are like 400, 500,000. So I don't know. But those are pretty much everywhere. And I feel like if you knew you were going to do something, you just had a grave dug. That way, it's like literally, it's all of 2 minutes to grab the person, drag them back there, drop it, throw it up, and you're within 3 minutes, you're back in your car driving away.
Right.
So I mean, I think it I don't know how far you have to drive, but obviously, he had plenty of time to drive.
Right.
But or can you track? Did you ever see where where he was going? Did you guys ever go and look like, hey, he was here for an hour and a half in this rural area? Let's go check that out. Did that ever occur?
So, we fast forward into when her remains are found.
I had no idea. I didn't know her remains were found.
Okay.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So her.
I watched the whole video on this.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I wanted to add to something though. So, the community really ran with this story because it's unique. It really hadn't happened in our. Not that I can recall. I mean, I lived there my whole life and worked there ended up being, about 14 years. But anyways, so we had the calls never stopped all day for months. All day it was, I know where she's at. And it was
not helpful.
It was the psychics too. And I don't want to shit on anybody that says they're psychic or whatever. Yeah. I'm not a big believer in that type of stuff.
Right.
But we had psychics coming from every area. I mean, we had people calling from New York State and everything, and they were like looking at maps of the area where Riverside is, and then it was just constant. You need to look here, and we actually had a woman come in, and she was so convinced. She kept calling over and over, and she was convinced that she was disposed of in this particular lake, this body of water. No reason for us to, and to be honest, we blew her off a lot because I'm not buying into the psychic stuff,
right.
That being said, so she ends up coming to the police department one day. It was a wild woman, and she asked to come back and speak with me directly, and so I'm like, all right. So she comes back, and she's going through her whole credentials of how she supposedly helped the police, and maybe she's right, but I don't buy into this stuff. and she's still adamant, you got to check this body of water. I'm telling you, this is where she's at. I've seen it in a vision. She spoke to me from the grave, the whole 9 yards. And I'm like, all right, yeah, we'll look into it. And she's like, why don't you look into it now? Why don't you do it while I'm here? And I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be friendly and stuff.
Right.
I don't
I do have a schedule.
I don't want to get in trouble, but I'll take your information. We'll look into it. No, look into it now. I am not leaving this police department until you check this particular body. And by the way, her remains ended up being found. There's nowhere where this woman's at.
I was waiting for the reveal that it was.
Yeah, nowhere even close. So she's in the office, and she's basically like, I'm not going anywhere. You will check this. And I'm like, it's time for you to go.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to a point where I'm like, now you're trespassing, and I don't want to be this guy, but if you don't get up and leave now, I'm going to arrest you for trespassing. You've been told to leave the police department,
And you won't be leaving.
and so you've got a choice. And she ends up getting up and leaving, but she's still, running her mouth the whole time, out the door and stuff. And we, it was like, you got to go.
And take your crystals with you.
Yeah. But there was so much of that.
Right.
And it was so frustrating. But so basically we go to the prosecutor's office and we meet with them so many times. I can't even put a number on it, but like sit down and officially present our case probably 7 to 10 times. And this is before she's found. And we keep being told the same thing. You got a good circumstantial case, you really do.
But
Here's the problem. You don't have a body. You know how hard it is to prosecute any person without a body. It happens very rarely. If we get a body, that changes everything. So it's like, okay, we gotta figure out where she's at. And this company, I don't know if I should say who they are, but they come in and their whole specialty is they search. They do all these volunteers come in and they do these big, huge, elaborate searches.
yeah, I think I know who you're talking about.
Okay.
I don't know the name of the company, but I've heard of this where they have there's members all over the place, and they'll come in just to do searches, and they have the radar. Sometimes they have like different equipment, and they do it all over the place.
Yeah. So the guy that is in charge of this particular chapter of their their search team or whatever inserts himself into this investigation. And I'd rather not say his name, but he comes in and he becomes the family it's almost like if you want to talk to Cheryl's family, I'm now their point of contact. And this person did so much more damage than good. And I should say, is organizing his team to do, well, we're gonna this particular weekend we're gonna check here. And I don't know what his like his end goal was for this, because nowhere close all the like the psychic, nowhere where this guy is.
Well, some people want to inject them. You know this. Some people just want to inject themselves into an investigation to be just for the I don't know what it is, to be a center of attention, like they're.
Yeah. So I do Dateline. This episode never aired. I'm sure it's probably because there's still no closure. And I want to be clear, there's no charges have been filed against anybody in this case or anything at this point. Obviously there's still persons of interest, whatever, how I classify it. But I'm assuming that's why Dateline was great. They were awesome. I spent like a whole day with them, and they did such a good job, and I was excited for the story to air. But that being said, this particular person who runs this search team had inserted himself so much in this case with there's no nothing that this guy's done to benefit us at all.
Right.
And it's like every time him and his team went out, they were like, bringing, calling us out for animal bones. And, one time, like they found a pair of pink underwear somewhere nearby that he was convinced this was her underwear. And it's just like, dude,
He's grandstanding.
Stop, man, please. And then they held vigils for her, like, X amount of anniversaries. and he just stood with the family. It's this like great big muscular guy, and like you had to go through him. I'm the lead detective, and this family's great. Cheryl's family's been great this whole time, but now
Feel like they were duped by this guy, or is he kind of inserting himself into, and they're not interested, or they're.
I don't think they were duped by him. I just think that he had convinced them that like we're going to find her, and he played the knight in shining armor, and just a ridiculous person, ridiculous guy. I couldn't stand him.
All right.
That being said, so we go to like one of her anniversaries that marks, whether it was her birthday or they held vigils for her a lot. And I'm like trying to make my way over to the family to talk to them, and he's literally just guarding them like a bodyguard. And he and I don't care for each other. I don't like him. He don't like me. And I want to go talk to the family and stuff, but I want to avoid him so badly that I actually he kind of kept me from doing that. Not because he intimidated me or anything, but just because I hated talking to him so much that, and I to this day, he might still be in touch with them or what. And he did nothing for this case, nothing.
Right.
So, anyways, back to the Dateline story. So, they finish up doing my interview, and you have to sign, consent to, them use your footage or whatever. And I just so happened to ask them, I'm like, what are you guys doing the rest of the day? And they're like, oh, we're going to go meet with this guy that I keep referring to. And, we're going to spend some time with him. And I was like,
it's a waste of time.
He's a clown.
Right.
He's just a clown. And if you're going to do that, then I'm going to go ahead and pull back my consent for all this, because I don't want to be tied to this guy's name. He has done nothing to assist in our case. I think he's a clown. I made it very clear that if this episode is going to feature a lot of him, then count me out. And they never, to my knowledge, aired anything with. I mean, it never did air. But as far as I know, I don't know if they canceled whatever there was. But I dislike this guy so much that I just said. But anyways, that was kind of a side tangent. I can't stand this guy. So fast forward to.
Yeah, I had a Dateline episode.
Did you really?
I didn't have a good experience with him.
Really?
At all.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
I was incarcerated, so.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a little bit.
They weren't
different.
kind to me at all.
That's a little bit different.
Honestly.
So they didn't. Well, what about your story now? Can't they come back and? Why can't they come?
That's not their MO. They're not doing a.
But you're a success.
comeback.
But you're a success story now, and you're a good guy, and you're
I think they're gonna do one.
Man, well, they should.
What is that guy? Oh gosh, his name was Curtis something. I don't know, Curtis or something. Who interviewed you? Was it the guy with the white hair? No, he was probably gone by then.
It was a female, and to be honest, I don't remember her name. She was great. They were treated us with so much hospitality and everything. It's just, again, it never aired because we don't have the closure that obviously we needed.
It's funny that they would even do that. You know what I'm saying? Like you would think. I guess they really felt there was going to be.
Right.
And had you found the body at this point?
I don't believe we had at this point. I think it was before that even.
Okay.
So actually, we as a police or any agency never found her. My wife and I moved. We had to literally move. This case got so much attention, and I drew so much criticism. And I'll criticize myself before anybody, but I don't have any type of. I don't feel bad about this case because in my opinion, I did a really good job on this case. It's just a lot of things never worked out in our favor. The video timing, the two different videos timing out, things like that, and people that we were zoned in on as far as we can get something with cell phone that we didn't get that because cell phone wasn't moving around. That would have given us a place to corroborate certain things and stuff like that. So we struck out, but it's not my department's fault. And, I don't want to be cocky, but it wasn't my fault. It just,
right.
Certain crimes just don't always,
they don't get solved.
Correct.
So when did are we at the point where her body gets found?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it was getting bad for my family around COVID. People were starting to put on like Facebook, like where my youngest daughter went to school, what class she was in. We ordered a pizza one night, and the pizza delivery driver recognized the last name on our delivery because we had to sign, paid with our debit card. And then he starts blowing my wife a bunch of crap about, oh, is your husband the guy that's on the Cheryl Coker case? What's up with that? Why hasn't? And it was like that night
You're delivering pizzas,
yeah,
bro.
and this
Like,
yeah.
I mean, like, what do you know?
So this guy starts, blowing her a bunch of crap, and that was like the definitive moment where we're like, we have to move from this city, and we got to do it like ASAP.
Right.
So we moved April of 2020 out to Bethel Township, like 20 minutes away from Riverside, into a different neighborhood. And while we were moving, I believe this was like on April 27th, I want to say was the exact date. I get a phone call. We're literally moving furniture into the new house, and I get a phone call like, hey, we think Cheryl's remains were found. A mushroom hunter of all people is mushroom hunting a thing down here?
No. We use people that hunt for snakes and
Is this someone that's just like
pythons.
going through the woods looking for mushrooms?
Yeah,
And when I went to school in Missouri, I had some friends like, oh yeah, we're going hiking and we're looking for XYZ. But
Well, they have mushrooms like in cow pastures and stuff. I think they do that. Like they'll grow. I don't know. That's a question for my wife.
yeah,
She would know.
It could be a Midwest thing. I don't know. I've never personally done it. My wife used to do it. But there's this guy out randomly hunting for mushrooms in late April on a Saturday evening and stumbles across, a somewhat intact skeleton that has like a black sweatshirt wrapped around it. So,
And, like, is this just in the middle of a field or in the woods? Or
so it's
is it close to a road?
Yeah, so it's like right off the road. It's like a little wood patch, and I wouldn't say it's the most secluded area in the world. I mean, it's rural, but you're it's like a little bit of a windy road and stuff. You got houses here scattered, but this person, sees this, calls the police, and then we end up getting notified that with the skeletal remains is a black Nitsa hooded sweatshirt. Well, Nitsa is who
Yeah.
Cheryl worked for. So obviously we knew that we had to have dental records, confirmation, or Cheryl had a surgery. So she had something like a spinal surgery. So she had like a disc that was specific. It had like a serial number and everything on it. It was a very specific thing. And among the remains, we were able to find this particular thing. I believe it was like in one of her vertebrae. And we knew that was her. We knew because of the sweatshirt
Yeah.
that it was her, and then obviously that and everything came back. This is Cheryl, so we're super excited. Now we actually now have a body, so we take it back to the prosecutor's office, and it's frustrating for me because it's like I was like, as soon as we get this body, we're gonna we should have this case approved like
Right.
we want, and we didn't. It was just like more and more. It went from, get us a body and we think this is a good case to, well, I know you got the body, but, there's still a lot of things you got to do. And I'm like, it's like every time I went there, they just gave me this huge list of stuff to do. And I did it every time, check this, check that, go to this person's work, go to that person's work, dig into this more.
Is it possible because there's so few murders that they don't feel comfortable prosecuting?
No, there's a ton of murders in Montgomery County.
Oh.
Okay. Montgomery County is one of the, bigger counties as far as like prosecution goes and things like that. And the prosecutor's office has an extremely, extremely high conviction rate. So, the opinion of a lot of detectives in Montgomery County is that you have to have such a smoking gun case to get charges or whatever. And again, that's an opinion, not a
Right.
fact. But an opinion that a lot of people shared was that, without any type of physical evidence and things like that, or clear-cut video evidence that supports, the crime or whatever, it's hard to have. Hard to get them to take the case, I guess I should say. So that being said, Just met with them over and over and over and over again. And
Did they ever figure out what the cause of death was?
no, there was no. So this is crazy. So she was found about 18 months after she disappeared,
Mhm.
and most of her skeletal remains were located. You know, we couldn't. There wasn't any signs that she was shot or stabbed or anything like that, or there was really no way of determining cause of death. And if she was, you know, strangled or something, or choked out, or you know, her hyoid bone, or what I always have difficulties. Hyoid bone, I think.
Yeah.
We never found that to see if it was like
Yeah.
crushed or anything. So, actually, had one of the prosecutors say, and I won't say who. You would meet with like a team of prosecutors,
Right.
and I had one in particular said that the craziest thing. He or she said, "We can't determine a cause of death. We have no idea how she died, so that's going to be a big." And I get where that person's coming
Right.
from, but you know, this person said, "How do we know she just didn't go out in the woods and just die out there?" And I'm like, okay, so we've got to.
Yeah, if that's the standard, like if that's where you're coming from, like fucking, that's just
Yeah.
pure stupidity. Like,
Yeah, well, how'd she get there?
You're right.
Her car is low. Did she? You know, there was no indications that she was ever would have ever done self harm.
Right.
There was no drug history or anything like that. I mean, this was a regular, everyday mother
I
that
don't know a lot of people that just lay down in a field and just, you know.
and either decide to self harm themselves or overdose because they've never used drugs before, but now all of a sudden, and they would have had to have somebody drive them out there, and you know, hey, see you
Right.
later. I'm going to do this or that to myself. So when that was said to me, it was just like I'm, you know, and that's one. I'm not speaking for the head prosecutor.
Right.
This is just one particular person said that to me, and I was beyond frustrated. You know, so. I mean, here we are, all these years later, and it was just the disappearance on the October 2nd was the 7th anniversary of excuse me, October 2nd was the 7-year anniversary of her disappearance and stuff, and we still don't have the closure, and most importantly, the family doesn't have the closure, and that really sucks. Cheryl's mom, who wanted nothing. She was sick. She was battling cancer. She was maybe the nicest woman I've ever met in my life. You know, all she wanted to do was see justice before she passed away. And she was getting a lot older, and I think she kind of knew her health wasn't going to hold up much longer. And unfortunately, she did pass away, and she never got to see any type of justice. And that just, you know, that just really, really sucks. So, it's, you know, it's had a huge impact on the community, the police department, you know, and I don't have any type of, I don't work for the police department any longer. But I don't have any type of negative things to say about them. They were great when it came to this investigation. They wanted to see closure just as much as I did, you know, as a whole. And, you know, just sometimes things don't always go your way, and every detective has a story. As cliche as it is, but every detective has a case that they just can't ever seem to shake, and this is mine.
The problem is murder is such a distinctive crime as opposed to other crimes. Like you can be a normal person and have a job working as a CPA and just be the most boring average person, and then suddenly commit murder and never commit another crime.
Right.
And never, you know, so some of the rules that apply for to normal criminals, right? Like criminals talk. They hang out with other criminals. They, even if they don't, they tend to brag about their crimes they've gotten away with, or like it's just part of the mental condition that, you know, makes someone a criminal. It's almost impossible for them not to brag and talk in general. So I have, like, I do watch a lot of true crime, which is, you know, the best thing. Because like I remember I told you my car went, the brakes went out.
Did your first thought was somebody did this to me?
No.
Okay, because that would have been my first
No,
thought.
my wife would. Yeah, she could. Yeah.
You guys aren't in an
No,
argument
we're
right
not.
now, are you?
No,
Okay,
we're doing good. So I'm thinking, no, she's not going to let me go. But no, you know what I thought was? So we were on this. It was basically a dirt road where it had kind of happened.
Right.
And so I pulled over. I called my wife and said, "Hey, I need you to come bring me your car. Call the tow truck and have the car towed." She goes, "Okay." Well, while I'm waiting, a car pulls up. Some guy named like Tommy. He pulls up. He's like, "You okay?" Because I put on my hazards on this basically almost abandoned road, like because there's so many cars. But I'm sitting there and I was like, "Yeah, I'm." I said, "My brake line went out. Like I stepped on the brakes, went out." And he goes, "Yeah." He said, "Have you?" He starts asking me questions. He's sitting there, it's Florida. And so he's kind of, wanting to help out. And he pulls over, gets out, pop the hood. And then I pop the hood. He looks and then he's, "Well, he's, oh, wow, you can see the brake fluid." And so he's having a whole discussion. My wife pulls up. My wife is a marine mechanic. So she can she does all kind of mechanical stuff, right?
Right.
So she pulls up behind me, gets out, walks over, and she and Tommy are having this whole discussion. I'm like, "Hey, I need the keys. I got to get going." I get in her car and I'm leaving. And as I'm driving away, as I'm about to enter the road where I said there was a lot of cars, as I'm about to drive off, I'm like, "I fucking know this guy. Did I just fucking leave my wife on the side of the road with some guy named Tommy? What am I going to tell the police?"
Yeah.
No, it was Tommy. He's okay.
Yeah.
I just met Tommy.
Yeah.
This is how, and my first thought was I should have taken a photo of Tommy's, his license plate, but I didn't take a photo of it. What I did instead was I turned around and I took photos of him talking with my wife, and so this is little Tommy and my wife sitting on the side, and I'm thinking I do remember his name, and then I immediately sent my wife a text that said, what did I say to her too? I said, "Are you okay?" Oh, Tony. Sorry.
Tony.
I made sure wanted to make sure I said, Tony seemed like a nice guy, but everyone said Ted Bundy seemed like a nice guy too. Be careful. Listen, that's the problem, that I watch so much true crime. Like, we'll be with her daughter, and we were at the beach one time. We're laying with her daughter, and her daughter's like, "Hey, I need to go to the car. I forgot my such and such." And Jess goes, "Okay," and gives her the keys, and she walks off. And I said, "And she was never seen again." I'm saying that's how these things start. Like, you need to walk with her to the. She's like, "We're in the middle of." I go, "That's the whole thing."
Yeah.
They took her in the middle of a busy beach area in a parking lot. She was never seen again. I said, "You know who the suspects are? You and me."
Right.
So like if I leave here and Colby is here and I leave, by the time I've gotten into my vehicle, I'm thinking, I'm the last person to see this motherfucker. He doesn't show up, I'm going to prison.
Right.
So as soon as I get in my car, I'm like, I start texting, "Hey, bro, everything okay?"
Yeah.
Like, let me call him. Boop. I'm like, "Hey, everything okay? You gonna be good?" Yeah, we're good. So I'm just make sure I leave a digital print that I was driving away. He was here.
Yeah.
So, with that said, that was going somewhere with this too.
I like the story.
But,
I mean, yeah.
But I know what I know what it was. No, I don't. It was on the tip of my tongue. It was that.
You were saying something about the accountant that commits this crime? He'll go on.
Oh yeah,
his
yeah.
life.
Oh, I know. That's right. I do. So I had a friend that was murdered. I say a friend. He wasn't a friend. I knew a douchebag.
Okay.
Okay. I knew this guy who was a complete scoundrel. His name was Greg Shelton. Shelton. I think it was with a T. Anyway, Greg was a guy that I grew up with, and you know how you grow up with a bunch of guys from high school, and then all of a sudden it's like in high school we're all buddies, and then we got to the point where it was college, so I said time to go to college, and I went to college, and this guy went to work at a gym, and then this guy started stealing cars and selling drugs, and it was like, well, that came out of nowhere. Like, this guy never did drugs. He was one of the guys at the gym. We all kind of worked out together and hung out. We were all buddies. Like, I didn't see this coming.
Right.
Anyway, he ended up ripping off another guy, Scott something. I don't want to say his last name, but he was never. But Scott ended up. He and Greg were selling drugs. Like, we were kind of working with each other, and so Greg had been dating a girl. He got her pregnant. I think they're living together. They were living together. And one day, he gave Scott a bunch of money to drive to Miami to get, like, let's say, a half a key.
Mm-hmm.
He comes back and Greg says, "Hey, meet me up at the Shoney's." I think it was a Shoney's, something like that. You know Shoney's?
Yeah.
Okay. I never know what's up north and what's down here. So, like we have Publix, and then you say that to somebody. That's like grocery store, big chain down here. You say that to somebody else, and they're like, "What?"
Right.
So anyway, so it's like a Shoney's, and so Greg goes to meet him at the Shoney's, and this is back when they had like pagers. What Scott didn't know was that Greg already had his brother with him, and they were like, he's like, "Oh, we're gonna meet. He and I are gonna go in to eat. I'm gonna get him to go in to eat, and when we come back to split it up." By the time we get back, I want you to have broken into the car and stolen it or steal it.
Mm-hmm.
His brother's like, "No problem." So he drops off his brother down the street. He goes, he meets with Scott. They go in and eat. They go back out. Somebody's broken in the car and it's gone. Scott, of course, is like, "You're the only person that knew we were coming here."
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying, "What are you talking about? Like, you're the one that said, like, I didn't know." So it's a whole, they're kind of blaming each other, but Scott's not falling for it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Okay." So then Scott's going around saying he's gonna kill Greg. He's telling people, "I'm gonna kill this guy."
Mm-hmm.
And only because suddenly Greg and people that are calling Scott for product he's saying, "I don't have anything." Those same people are now, when he's calling around to people are now saying, "Oh, Greg's got a ton of stuff." Well, I went to Greg. He's got a ton of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. So a month or two goes by, and Scott calls Greg and says, "Hey, man, I'm going back to Miami to do this again. You want to?" And back then, and I think he had gave him like $7,500. It was like $15,000 something. And I don't really know the exact number, but it was a lot of money for guys that are in there, like that are 22 years old, 23 years old. That's a lot of money.
Right.
And this was 20 years ago, and whatever the product was at that point. So he's like, "But listen," and I think that Greg or one of the two of them said, "But we should go together. That way we don't have that issue again." You know, I'm not saying you did anything,
Right.
but okay. So one day, Scott gets his girlfriend to rent a car. He takes the car, drives to Greg's house when they're going to go to Miami, beeps the horn. Now he's 45, 50 feet away. Beeps the horn. Greg comes out, gets in the vehicle, and they leave. Amy, Greg's girlfriend, thinks he's going to be back later that day. He never shows up. The next day, he's not there. She's paging, nothing. You know, paging the calling the mom, calling the sister, calling everybody, calling now eventually calls gets a hold of Scott, and Scott's like, "What are you talking about? Like, we never went anywhere."
Mm-hmm.
"What are you saying? There's no cell data. There's no nothing.
Right.
There's some pagers that
What
don't
year,
mean."
What year was this?
I want to say this would have been 19, like let's say 92 or 93,
Okay.
somewhere around there. So and so what happens is by the time, so eventually Greg's mother and Amy, they contact the police. The police come, they take a statement. Missing. Scott was the last person. Now they're like, "Did you see him get in the car with Scott?" "No, I didn't see him, but it was the car called. He had told him on the phone he was going to pull up and beep the horn."
Mm-hmm.
Car pulled up, beeped the horn, got in there. Like, "Well, you don't know that was Scott." He said, "What are you talking about? It was him."
Right.
And so what happens is now it's been a few days, like a week or so later, a vehicle is found set on fire that was the rental car that was rented to Scott's girlfriend. She reported the car stolen almost immediately. Like, you know, whenever, by the time they went there and back, she reports it stolen.
Mm-hmm.
You know, whatever time period, roughly the same time period. Keep in mind, they never went there. They never went to Miami, supposedly. So we just know that the car was rented by her, and within hours or a day, it was reported stolen. A couple weeks later, it's found set on fire or whatever in the middle of nowhere. A snake charmer. That's what they call these guys that walk around and find snakes.
Okay.
in Florida. This is Florida people stuff. So is walking through the woods one day, I don't know, hundreds of feet away from some dirt road. There's tons of dirt roads around here. So, and finds a body that has been, I want to say, tied to a tree.
Oh, wow.
And fingers broken, just tortured, just really, really tortured, and eventually shot several times shot several times in the chest. This is my understanding that it was Greg's body. He was tortured, and then eventually shot several times, and then. And I still know. Well, I don't know Amy now. I haven't talked to her in a couple 20 years, but I knew her during that period of time, and so she was constantly telling me and everybody else what happened. Like the detectives came by, they said this, and what was funny is like every 10 years or so, the detectives show up again. Like they keep reopening it, and the problem they keep reopening it is that Scott apparently must have an alcohol problem, because every 3 or 4 or 5 years he'll get drunk and tell somebody what happened. And then that guy goes and says, man, I was at the bar drunk with this fucking guy, and he told me how he fucking murdered Greg.
Yeah, right.
He said he fucking broke his fingers or tortured him and got him to admit that he had stolen this shit. He was pleading for his life. He told him if he'd admitted, and then he's like, and then once he admitted everything and told him he's begging and pleading, he said then he just shot him a bunch of times and killed him and left him in the fucking woods. And now here's the problem with the detectives, and I don't know if this is Florida or something, this is something Amy had told me, was that when they questioned Scott, of course, he was like, what are you talking about? Like, I never picked this fucking idiot up. I never did anything like that. I don't know what you're talking about. My girlfriend had rented a car because her car was, she needed a car and it got stolen. That's the only thing you guys have right. And on top of that, I was home with my parents. And his father and mother were like, we watched the fucking football game with him. He never went to Miami. Now in Florida, apparently, you somehow or another, you can't compel family members or sue, or there's something that says like they can't arrest them for giving him. Amy tried to explain it, but she's like, your family can give you an alibi, and they really can't be prosecuted for giving a child, or it's almost impossible, or almost never happens where they'll prosecute you for helping a child with a false alibi, something along those lines. I don't know exactly what it was, and I was like, okay. Anyway, he does periodically tell people, and of course the cops always say, I mean, he was drunk. Even if you had him on tape drunk, it could have just been him bragging about it. Like, it would help, but his defense attorney was going to be like, okay, he's a drunk. He's a drunk. This is the biggest thing that ever happened in his life. He's just blowing smoke, trying to impress you that he's a tough guy or a murderer. He's like, it doesn't, but they do periodically show up. And these guys, so sometimes, not always, because I think a lot of these guys probably never say anything. I mean, I don't really know what the fucking statistic is, but I don't know. I'm just talking about a guy. I know everything because I've watched like at least 100 true crime things. Probably watched 1,000, Dateline. So I know everything. I'm an avid follower. I've watched almost every episode of Law and Order, so I know everything. Yep. So, but I mean, because I was thinking at some point maybe he talks, but even then, like this guy, I know this guy. This guy's talked multiple times. There's nothing, and it seems like that's a hugely circumstantial case that you would think, oh, well, they can prosecute with that, but they can't. Like, a good defense attorney might just tear them apart.
Right. So this is very interesting. And again, I want to be clear. He's a person of interest.
Your guy.
My guy.
Now we're talking about you, the husband.
Guy. He's a person of interest, as every spouse of a missing, murdered person would be.
First person you think of, right? You're most likely to be murdered by the person that,
Statistically, yes. Yep. He has never been charged. No, I just want to be clear about that. Now, this was just a couple years ago. I'm at the municipal court. So you have common pleas court, which handles all the felonies in Montgomery County. And then you have a municipal court, which is essentially like a misdemeanor court. And you got different divisions. So I'm at Eastern Division Municipal Court of Montgomery County, and I'm hearing all this chatter from the clerks that work there. And they're like, the husband got subpoenaed for jury duty. And, there's some odd things on his, you got to fill out a jury questionnaire,
Right.
do you have this, all these lists of questions that would make you either a good or a bad juror. So I'm like, I want to get my hands on this.
All right.
So because I know that he filled this out, so I go to a common pleas judge and I say, I want to obtain a warrant to get his jury questionnaire. I get it signed, I get it back. There was a question, and I'm paraphrasing. I'm not directly quoting the question on the form, but it says something to the effect of, have you or a family member ever been convicted or committed a felony? And it said you or a family member, I believe. And this was her husband's jury questionnaire. And the response was, quote, never caught. Never caught. So I'm reading this and I'm like, all right, what do I do now?
All right.
So I get a handwriting sample because, an easy out would be, well, I didn't put that. Somebody else wrote it.
Right.
So I get a handwriting sample from the statement that he filled out years ago. And I take that, the jury questionnaire that says never caught after that question. I submit it to the crime lab. And the crime lab comes back and they do a handwriting analysis and basically comes back, very confident that the same person who filled out this witness statement matches the handwriting in the jury questionnaire. So far, far more likely than not, the husband did write that according to what the handwriting analysis is. So I'm not saying that makes him guilty by any means. I'm just saying it was an interesting.
Did you ever bring that back to the prosecutors? They just shrugged it off.
They shrugged it exactly.
He's trying to get out of jury duties. He made an offhanded
and that
comment.
could be the case. That
Right.
could absolutely be the case. But it was interesting, given the massive spotlight that's been on him for X amount of years,
to even joke about that.
to write something like that or anything like that. So that was just another one of the frustrating parts about this case.
I thought you were going to say, like his ex-girlfriend said. That's the whole thing. Like, that's the problem with time, is that you never know. Like the girl that he's dating at the time, like we're in love. We got married. Great. 10 years later, they get a divorce and she walks in and says, by the way, here's what he did, how he did it. Here's the cell phones we were using. Here's the phone number. And the next thing you know, you've got a whole slew of evidence, even if it's just her coming in saying, look, here's what happened. Here's the way it really happened. And then maybe you can backstep it. And well, with her, that'd almost be a guarantee. This is a third party person that could get on this. Then I can't imagine why they wouldn't put it all together and just fucking say, come on, man, we got a witness. She saw the body, or he told her, something. She knows more than anybody else. She knows exactly what happened.
So two interesting things about the husband's girlfriend. I believe they're married now. Interviewed her, I believe it was Friday, October 5th. And I went to her place of work, which is also where he worked as well. And I went there specifically to meet with her. And pretty much as soon as I met with her, it was like, oh, I got to show you this text message Cheryl sent me. And it was this weird text message saying, and again, paraphrasing, not quoting, but, if something ever happens to me, please make sure to take care of my husband. If something ever happens to me, make sure he's taken care of. I want him to be taken care of and treated right, or, whatever.
That's odd.
And she was so eager to show me this. So I'm looking at it and I, hey, do you mind if I take a picture of this as evidence or whatever? And she actually let us download her phone. And she let the FBI agent come and do like a quick download of her phone to extract all that data. So the interesting part is we were never able to corroborate from Cheryl's phone, which we had in our possession that had been downloaded. We were never able to corroborate that she actually sent that text message to the husband's girlfriend, who's now the wife.
Really? You would think that that would be easy to go and check the texts, right? Like
One
the
would
history.
one could easily put, you know, Cheryl as the contact, and
Oh,
it'd be a
okay.
different, it could be coming from a different phone.
It seems like it's
So
then it seems like that's, or are you just saying that we can't prove that? But the truth is, it looks like it was forged. It was like it's basically more like a forgery because you can't connect it to her phone.
there has
Can't connect it.
been,
It's got to be a forgery.
the best way I can answer that would be, I've always personally, opinion-wise, suspected that either it did come from Cheryl's phone, but it wasn't actually sent by her. Somebody
Right.
else could have sent it, or it could have been she had her listed as a contact. That's just a suspicion of mine, or an inkling that I have. I can't prove it.
Right.
I'm just saying that's something suspicious that I always found. Another interesting thing is around that time. Actually, no, it was a few months later. I always felt that she had a lot more information, and I would, in my interrogations with her, I would make it very clear: I do not believe you. I think that you are withholding information. I think that you are potentially covering for somebody. So, would you come in and do a polygraph test? And yeah, I'll do one. So reach out to somebody with a neighboring agency who does polygraphs, and she goes in, she gets there on time, whatever. She sits down, and she comes up with this bizarre thing that she has like some sleep disorder, that she like falls asleep very easily.
If you sleep hot at night, you know how disruptive that can be. Whether you're having trouble falling asleep, you're waking up sweating in the middle of the night, or all of the above. That's where Ghost Bed can help. As the makers of the coolest beds in the world, Ghost Bed is your go-to for cooling mattresses, cooling pillows, and cooling bedding. From their signature Ghost Ice fabric to patented technology that adjusts to your body's temperature, every Ghost Bed mattress is designed with cooling in mind. So whether you want a plusher mattress that cushions your shoulders and hips, or a firm option with exceptional support, your Ghost Bed will keep you cool and comfortable all night long. When you purchase a Ghost Bed mattress, your comfort is guaranteed. You can try out your mattress for 101 nights, risk-free, to make sure it's the right fit for you. Plus, they offer free shipping, and most items are shipped within 24 hours. If you're not sure which Ghost Bed is right for you, check out their mattress quiz. You'll answer a few questions and get a personalized recommendation.
Just visit ghostbed.com/Cox and use code Cox at the checkout.
And very bizarre. So, anyways,
I mean, narcolepsy. Narcolepsy's a thing.
I guess, but she didn't use that term. She's
Right.
such, this is what, now she didn't tell me this directly. She allegedly told the polygraph guy. So I'm chomping at the bit all day. Those things take a long time, and they can take hours.
Yeah.
So, he calls me. I was actually searching a wood line. Some tip came in. We think she might be here. I was in the middle of searching for Cheryl's body. And finally, here comes the call from the detective who does polygraphs. So I answer it. I'm like, tell me you got good news. He's like, no. I tried for X amount of hours. I think he said like 4 hours he tried. And apparently, like every time that he would sit down and try to talk to her, she would nod off. And, I'm not saying she didn't fall asleep, but I'm also saying there's suspicion that there was a way of not having to. That was just a opinion suspicion that I
I mean,
had.
if you have narcolepsy that bad, you're getting a Social Security disability check.
So
I mean, there's no way you could. How do you have a job?
I don't
how
know.
do you function?
Well, what's interesting is I interrogated her multiple times. And
Never
she
happened?
Never happened with me, and that's on video too, where she's not, mid converse. She's not nodding off, but then all of a sudden,
This is almost like a comedy.
from what's being,
Right.
yeah.
That could you imagine? I couldn't imagine. Like, here's what we're gonna go with.
So I've always thought that, it's hard with a spouse, but I had another homicide case, and I won't bore you with all the details, but we had a kind of a love triangle, and a woman ended up dead on the highway, right by in Riverside, but one of the only highway that goes through there. So, anyways, the target of that shooting was actually the driver, who was the new boyfriend of Shooter's ex-girlfriend. And Shooter's girlfriend, I knew from the from the word go that she had all this information. She wouldn't come out with anything. And I think I pissed a lot of people off by doing this, but I'm kind of a different minded thinking type person when it comes to being a detective. Sometimes I would do things that are a little, unorthodox, I guess. So what I did was anytime somebody goes to jail, all they want is money on their books.
Mm-hmm.
All they want is to call every girl that they've ever slept with or had a relationship with, and they want to, have phone sex with them and stuff because that's how they pass their time, obviously. So I knew if I could not crack the girlfriend of the shooter, she would absolutely not give up anything on this guy, which he was convicted and he's, pretty much doing a life sentence now. But he was talking to all these other girls. So what I would do is I would take my iPhone and I would listen to the jail recordings of him, talking, oh, when I get out, baby, we're going to get together and we're going to move out of here. We're going to go live a great life and I'll take care of your kids and I'll do that. And she's actually has a kid with this guy. So I would sit there and I would just record minutes on minutes on minutes. And then he would get off the phone with that girl and then he would call another girl. And then I would text the new girlfriend all those recordings. Right. And
she very, very quickly became willing to be a witness.
She never actually became a witness. She never gave up anything to us. What's interesting, though, is my whole tactic was I just keep sending her as many I've sent her several a day, every day, just flood her. And she never said stop, it's because if she would have said stop, this is harassment, then I got to stop.
Yeah.
But I sent her so much. Well, what she would do is the next time he called her, because this was the main girlfriend, this was the one he's got a child with, she would lash out and, and then she would start talking about the case, even though she wouldn't tell me about it. She would tell him, you piece of shit, you why don't you just tell him that you shot you because actually the person that died was not the intended target. It was a girl in the back seat. But she's just spilled everything on these jail calls. Well, now she can't get out of it because, here comes grand jury and, these are evidence. I'm using these jail calls as evidence and she has to get up on this, in front of a grand jury and later at the trial and be like, yeah, I said this and, yeah, I had knowledge that he did that. And basically she just wrecked this guy.
Right.
If it wouldn't have been for her doing that, I don't know if we would have, we may have still got a conviction, but it would have been very, very difficult. But I don't think there was a lot of people at the prosecutor's office that did not like me doing that.
Right.
Why? I don't know. Nothing illegal about it. I'm not, I'm just
certainly helped their
kind
case.
of being a scumbag doing what I'm doing. But, if it solves a murder, it solves a murder. So unfortunately, in the Cheryl's disappearance, there was never anybody locked up in jail that I could dissect some jail calls or anything like that. So I was at a little bit of a disadvantage there too, because, people slip up and they say dumb stuff on jail calls. They forget they're being recorded sometimes.
Well, the husband's new wife really needs to hope that relationship stays solid.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess so.
Because, if she does have more information, then, he might not be okay if that would start. We know how he feels about, a marriage going bad.
Yep.
So like this guy, the wife, the new wife has to have some inkling something's wrong, something doesn't add up, something. Even if you're in love with someone and you want to give them the benefit of the doubt. After 10 years, you start to, there's cracks in the marriage, whatever, things start to go bad. She may have a change of heart at some point. I don't know, with the narcolepsy, who knows if she'll make a good witness.
Right.
But something to think about.
Yep.
If she gets out of the relationship alive, she may be a great witness. He may end up telling somebody at some point, somebody gets them on tape. Who knows? You never know what's going to happen in the future. There may be evidence out there that just hasn't been uncovered yet. And that, that's the things with these people 10 years later, 20 years later getting found guilty. Suddenly there's something shows up.
There was a lot of theories on Facebook that, we live in a small town and the wild stuff that you hear is, one of the big things was the reason that the case was never solved was because me and him we were buddies, and there was a wild theory that we were spotted together at a Bengals game after, like mid investigation.
Right.
And there was like witnesses that said that they saw me and this guy at a because I'm a huge Bengals fan. I guess people may have figured that out with, my Facebook page or something like
Right.
that. But it was that me and him were going to games together. There was another theory that that I was like in a romantic relationship with their oldest daughter, which is, I mean, I'm married, I have two
Right.
kids, obviously, but the idiots that get on social media
Yeah,
and
and say
this,
anything.
the stuff that, and the thing is people read it and they just believe it. Like, oh, well, the reason that nobody's being prosecuted, and again, I'm just saying he's a person of interest. But these theories are, oh, he gets away with it because him and the lead detective are good friends with each other. I've never met this man in my life until now. I didn't know who his wife. I've never met any of these
Right.
people involved in this whole case. So it was just one of those things where it's like, yeah, we got to get out of here and try to get as far away from these nut jobs as possible. So, and I still take shit on Facebook every day. We've got a community page where, I wouldn't say it's really been recent, but from time to time when Cheryl's name gets brought up, it's, oh, the idiot detective, if he just would have,
Right.
he just would have let the Ohio BCI take this in the first place, this would have been solved by now. And it's like, I don't care if I'm being cocky or not. I'm a good detective. And
Right.
that's just not, nobody would have done anything different than I did. So,
Wade, I have a buddy, Wade, who it basically the short version is Wade and his wife separated. They were dating other people. They got back together. The ex-boyfriend kind of comes over. This is a very short version. Comes over to the house together. They had been, and so they were having a conversation. They had a conversation. Like he just like they were both been drinking a little bit, but the guy had some questions. Want to know how long were you guys seeing each other? Like even though it's his wife, they were dating. They were about to get a divorce.
mm-hmm.
They're in there having a conversation. The guy attacks him in his own house. Wade has his weapon on him. He ends up shooting the guy 3 times. Boom, boom, boom. Done. He eventually gets grabbed, or he eventually gets charged with the crime. And it took like 4 years before they finally just dropped it.
Mm-hmm.
Like they were like, it's castle law. He's in his own home. The guy attacked him. It's all pretty cut and dry. This happened to be a new detective, been on the job for a short period of time. It was insisting that he had set this guy. He lured him here. And so it's just her going, her making this whole thing up in her head, and anyway, so it gets dropped. But he said to this day, there are people on Facebook that talk about how he had murdered this guy, how he there's a whole kind of a subculture about how this is happening and how he did all these nefarious things and this and that. And at some point, I forget what he said. He said he was talking to somebody and they said, "Oh, where do you live? Do you remember this?" He said
Yeah. Oh,
they-
you live by where that guy.
where that guy killed the guy in his house. And he's like, "Yeah, I do live there." like this is still like it's been a few years. It's only been a few years, really. It's only been like I think 4 years, maybe. But since they dropped it, so it's been like 8 years since it happened. But to this day, he said it still follows him around. Like that gets kind of in the in that kind of the ethos, and it just festers, and nobody ever before they start running their mouth, nobody ever really looks into it, and I love the guys, people who like, I try not to speak in specifics about things I'm not sure of. So I'm like, I think maybe this is what I heard. I'm not sure. Like I'll try and kind of front load it. Like I'm not saying this exactly because I don't remember. I have a vague understanding of what happened. Yeah, so that's going to happen, especially on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
That's just going to, it'll always kind of be there. There's just too many morons that have access to these platforms.
I'm new to YouTube. I've never had a YouTube account or anything like that. So, my goal is to start, love to do what you do, probably be at a much much smaller scale, but it's something I'd like to get into eventually. And I was the lead on 7 homicides, and then I was, assisted on like 3 other homicides. So I had a lot of homicide experience in 7.5 years of being a detective. So I'm starting to put videos on my YouTube page is called Fallout of True Crime. The same thing for TikTok. It's
What is it called?
Fallout of True Crime.
Fallout of True Crime. Okay.
Yeah. So, and what I'm trying to do is just, I get on and I do my daily rants about, this, that, or the other. One of the big things that I started out with was like, the amount of people who leave their cars unlocked overnight and they leave their gun in their car and call the police the next day and throw a fit because their gun got stolen.
Yeah, their Glock's gone.
Or they left their wallet and, their debit cards got used and stuff like that. So I'm getting on there and I'm just like, quit being, just anybody that the 2 people right now that are watching me,
Right.
Quit being idiots is what police have to deal with. And you're more than likely not going to find your gun, your wallet, all this stuff. Like if you don't, you have to take measures into your own hands to not become a victim. And I'm already getting the nasty comments like, oh, you're a victim blamer. And you're a typical cop who doesn't want to take a report and stuff like that. And I'm like,
Oh, this is you. Listen, you better get some thick ass skin.
yeah.
Because-
Well, no, not a lot of people comment because
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of.
Oh, but it's not gonna. It won't stop.
Right.
Like it's not the bigger you get, the more haters are out there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I get tons of people that just hate on me for all kinds of, especially these shorts that these guys are coming up with.
Right.
That they put out there. I mean, it's just butchering me.
Yeah.
And it's like you just watched a 2.5-minute short.
Right.
You don't know what the context of that conversation was, and the editors cut it up like anything.
Right.
Or even a phone call, or even a conversation like this. Anything that you said that was you didn't qualify the statement before you said it properly enough for them to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll misconstrue it, and then they'll butcher you with it, even though they're wrong. So you have to just kind of be like, what you have to be happy about is that they're watching.
Mm-hmm.
You're watching. You hate my guts, but there's some of these guys that leave negative comments. I'm like, God, this guy is just horrible. Like he really despises me.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, he's calling me names. He's saying horrible things, and then you go, you know what? I wonder if he's probably never watched me before. Click. Oh no, and you can click on it on the studio. You can click and you can see all the horrible comments he's made. He's like 40 or 50 of them on every video he watches. He says something derogatory. It's like,
Right.
That guy's a fan.
Right. Yeah.
Like he's a professional. A professional I Hate Matt Cox fan,
yeah.
but he's watching the full video.
right.
You can watch all the videos. I wish I had another 500,000 of those guys. That changes nothing for the algorithm. And I don't care about this guy's opinion of me. He doesn't know me. He doesn't. He
Right.
sees, and I have people all the time that see me out and stop me and have full-blown conversations, and that they think we're friends because they do know a lot of the conversations that we have, and so they get to this point where they think you're buddies,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe they get to a point where they hate your guts and they see me and they don't approach me. So, but it doesn't really matter. That's not the purpose. Purpose is that you're there and you're producing videos, and like you said, like this thing, like this was a very small podcast.
Mm-hmm.
4 years ago, this was a teeny tiny little podcast that was
Right.
getting a few thousand, and we were busting our ass to get a few thousand. Matter of fact, if you go back a few years, there's still tons of video. And this is after years, they'll have like 3,000 views. That's after 4 years. Those videos had a few hundred views when they first came out. And I was all over YouTube. I had tons of videos directing people to my channel, and 100 views, 200 views,
Right.
500. Now, 4 years later, of people searching, they have 3,000.
Mm-hmm.
So there's, it's a slow process when you start out. It's always going to be slow. I don't think anybody. I'm sure there's always that one guy, 1 or 2 people out there that blew up immediately. But most people, they'll go years, and it just slowly ticks up.
I'm hoping so. The big, and I won't get into it because it'd take all day, and I don't want to do that. But the biggest case, like in our area ever in my life, probably there was a little girl. She was what 10 years old. She went missing back in 1996 from Kettering, which is it's just like Riverside. It's right. It borders Dayton, but it's a nice community. Not a lot of nice houses and stuff. This poor little girl, she goes out for a walk with her dog in the middle of the winter. Just take her dog for a walk, and she's never seen again. And to this day, here we are, 31 years later, and it is still like
Unsolved.
it's well, a couple people were charged and convicted with tampering with a body. So, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know this case all that well. I was only 13 years old when this happened, but I become really good friends with the lead detective in the case, and because he assisted me with the Cheryl Coker case, he assisted me with the Sterling Roberts case. He's a great guy and probably the best detective I've ever met in my life. But he's now retired, and he's never, ever gone on and told this story. I mean, Cheryl's case locally got a lot of attention. This is like the case of our area. And, I'm hoping, because I've called him up and I said, I want to do this little podcast from my house. It's nothing fancy, cheap backdrop or whatever, but this is what I want to do. And I'm like, man, I know you're not a big fan of doing this type of stuff. Is there any? And he stopped me. He's like, for you, I'll do it. He's like, I've never done it before, but for you, I'm going to come on and do it. So I'm hoping that at least in our area, I think that one may get a lot of views.
Right.
And then the FBI agent that I was telling you about, who's now retired, that Kevin guy, he's got a lot of story. You ever heard of the Dirty John story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We interviewed. Well, there's lots of Dirty John. You mean the main one?
The one that they did like a Bravo show on or whatever. That was.
We interviewed the daughter, the one that killed him.
Okay. Yeah.
We interviewed her. Yeah.
So that FBI guy that I'm buddies with, he was John's roommate all through college.
Oh my God.
So he's got stories for days because he was, scamming people, and I guess he scammed their landlord out of who was an attorney, scammed him, took him for a bunch of money and stuff. So I was asking the FBI guys, like, man, could you come up and tell some good stories? And he's like, man, let me do the Dirty John story. And I'm like, I thought he worked that case or something, And he was like, no, man, I was his roommate because they went to UD, University of Dayton. They went to law school together. So I got a couple good, guests that are going to come on and stuff. And I got to figure out, I haven't done them yet because I want to, I've watched
figure out the logistics.
I've watched a lot of your videos. I've watched some other, she's really into this true crime podcast stuff. And I'm just trying to figure out, I'm going to be a cheap setup. I got cheap microphones and everything, but it's just going to be, hopefully the content's good enough to make up for the fact that it's not going to be.
What you could also do stuff where you're just reviewing cases or just talking, and it could be anything. It could be, it could be Jeffrey Dahmer. If you sat down and went over the Jeffrey Dahmer case for 45 minutes to an hour, just talking to the camera,
right, and
put it out. I mean, what is it? It's content. Like you said, what does it matter? Nobody's listening,
right? Yeah.
So you don't know the algorithm. You kind of have to train. It takes years to train it to understand. Especially when you're not getting a lot of views, it takes even longer because it has to kind of eventually understand that, okay, out of this, 100,000 views or 10,000 views or 2,000 people that watch his channel over the course of a year, what are the similarities that they all have and things that they watch before it finally comes up with kind of like a model of who your videos would be ideal to refer to. Like, this is what we've come up with that they all kind of share, so we're going to look for people like that. But that takes a long time, and it needs a certain amount of views of people that watch the whole video or bulk of the video before it can come up with that model, to say, okay, this is the formula that we've got. So we need to be showing it to these people. And that takes a while, unless you get all, 100,000 views in the first 2 weeks or something. If you're a Kardashian, you're probably going to be okay.
Right,
you're gonna be jump on the algorithm very, very quickly. But otherwise, you just have to continually put out videos, and that's the problem. Is you know, most people quit just shy of taking off, and then they also they get upset because, well, I don't have anybody to interview today, and you know, I need somebody, and nobody showed up, so I'm just not going to do a video. I'm not going to be able to post this week, and I'm not. Okay, well then just sit down and talk for 45 minutes.
Right.
Come up with something. You go watch 2 videos. Ask ChatGPT to print you out a 14 bullet points, you know, and what would make a good podcast for me to talk about, a solo podcast for a former detective to discuss on the John Wayne Gacy. And then you just sit there and you go through it. You don't have to be good at it. You can sit, pull the paper up. Okay, the next one is, okay. And then you just run with it on what you think about this. I've watched 4 videos on it. And you just talk about it. 45 minutes later, you talk and you think, okay, yeah, I did a really shitty video and I just put out a really shitty video, but suddenly that may be the video that gets 750 views. And you're like, I don't get it. The other one got 120 views. I busted my ass on that video.
Yeah.
This one got 750. I don't understand. Well, eventually, what you figure out what works and what doesn't work. Who are we gonna talk to, and who are we not gonna talk to? Because every time we talk to this thing, this just doesn't work.
Yeah. Right.
And yeah, you eventually figure out what works. We've had times where we had no guests. Colby was like, well, go get one of your stories and sit down. You're going to start talking about one of these stories. We're going to do 4 videos on that because we have nobody scheduled for the next week. And it's like, fuck.
Yeah.
Because we weren't big enough where people would come.
Right.
When you're not big enough where people will jump in the vehicle and drive 4 hours or get on a plane, and then they're like, oh, will you fly me in and put me in a hotel? And like, what are you talking? How much money do you think I'm making?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
I know I'm not doing. That's craziness. Like, when that happens, it's a problem getting guests, and then eventually, so you have to get, to get creative, but you have to put out videos. You have to put out. That's the biggest problem. Most people, they don't want to put out something that's not decent, and they don't post regularly, and you have to think YouTube they're trying to get you they have a platform where they're trying to convince you to run a network for them. So if Friends posts every Thursday at 8 o'clock, you need to post every Thursday at 8 o'clock. It doesn't matter if it's an amazing Friends episode or it's a shitty Friends episode. Friends better come out at 8 o'clock. Because that's what the algorithm wants you to do. It's training. If suddenly Friends didn't show up for 2 weeks, if YouTube's like, okay, this person, this is not worth us pushing his content. It's not consistent enough to be a successful channel ever. Why? Because in the last 6 months, there have been multiple times that he didn't upload anything.
Right.
So why would I push your content? You're not reliable. They want reliability.
Okay.
And Colby said the same thing. It doesn't matter what you put it. You better put something. We got to put something better come out. Hey, you guys, I appreciate you watching. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell so you get notified of videos just like this, and please share the video. Also, do me a favor, go into the description box. We're going to leave all of Travis's social media links so you can go there and follow him. We're also going to leave the link to his YouTube channel so you can go there, click on there, subscribe, and watch his videos. Listen, he's going to be putting out a lot of great content. He's going to be got some great interviews that are coming up. I really appreciate you guys going and doing that and subscribing to his channel. Also, if you want to be a guest, we're going to leave our link to our website so you can go there, go to the Be a Guest page, fill out the application. It's super short. Leave a 3-minute video, and we'll get back with you as soon as possible. Once again, thank you so much. See ya.